Good evening, horror heads and comic book nerds. It's me, your old pal, Johnny Horror, returning to you once more to introduce a brand new bonus episode of our podcast. And while I am a horror nerd first and foremost, I do enjoy myself some superheroes and comic book movies, and I hope you do as well, since our discussion this go around will be on the latest Superman movie now in theaters. I was fortunate enough to have a nice long conversation with my co-host, Kalen Behrman, about the film, and now you get the opportunity to listen to it. So sit back and relax, or throw this shit on in the background while you go about your day. Either way, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Johnny Horror Podcast. Hello, friends and listeners, and welcome to a very special episode of the Johnny Horror Podcast. I don't know. We might need to change the name for this episode since we are not talking horror movies. We are talking comic book movies. Yes, this is a bonus episode. We are veering away from our M. Night Shyamalan season. That's like, I don't know, probably like 2 years long at this
2 years long, yeah.
To discuss James Gunn's 2025 reimagining, soft reboot, retelling of Superman. Just kind of a breakdown of why we're doing this. This is a movie that Kalen has been excited for like, I don't know, like the last 3 or 4 years, give or take.
Yep.
So I just felt that you've done so much for me all the time, and always game to talk about all the movies that I wanted to talk about, that I felt that it would be incredibly unfair not to sit down and discuss the movie that you've been looking forward to for the last handful of years. So that's why we're doing it, man. But obviously I kind of put the cart before the horse. Kalen Behrman, ladies and gentlemen, my co-host of the Johnny Horror Podcast. Sir, can you just A, say hi to the audience, and B, give me a general idea of what you can remember your first cinematic experience with the Man of Steel?
Sure. What's up, everyone? It's good to be back here. So my first cinematic experience with the Man of Steel that I recall, it's one of my earlier memories, and I was 3 years old, and I was watching Richard Donner's Superman. Not in theaters. I am not that old. But my family is and was a cinema family. They're movie lovers. We always, we had more home videos than most people when I was a tiny little boy. And so I remember watching that movie at about 3 years old at a family member's house, probably in my grandma's bedroom, honestly, at the house that my sister currently lives in. And that movie changed my life. Like that was the first time I can remember experiencing joy that wasn't directly tied to like a human being or a cat or a dog. Like, it's the first time that an imaginary thing made me feel that feeling of happiness. And I fell head over heels in love with the character Superman at 3 years old. And that's kind of dictated the course of my life, honestly. Yeah.
Hey, man, that's kind of hard to beat right there. How, without getting too much into it, just a general idea, how do you think it's dictated the course of your life?
So that movie made me fall in love with superheroes. And so my family was like, okay, he loves superheroes. Let's see what we can do for him. And so that led to things like obviously the other Superman movies that were already out at the time. Tim Burton's Batman, um, old cartoons of like the old Fantastic Four, the old Spider-Man, like the old 60s, 70s cartoons. Um, and superheroes became my favorite thing in the world. And that was followed by the rise of superhero Saturday morning cartoons for our generation, like Batman the animated series, X-Men the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, and then that parlayed into a love of comic books when I got old enough to read comic books. And to this day, comic books are, it's like movies and comics are the things I love more than anything. And superheroes are still one of my favorite genres of storytelling.
Speaking as someone who has been to your house on more than one occasion, I can safely say that your whole house is just comic books, like stacks of comic books. And folks, these are not just like comic books, they're encyclopedias of comics. They're like half a foot wide, and they're just stacks of them in various places of the house, and it
To,
just
to be
seems
clear to be clear to the audience, he doesn't mean like stacked on the floor. They're in bookshelves.
no, they're in bookshelves, but I imagine that when the bookshelves run out of space, they'll be stacked wherever they need to be.
There will always be more bookshelves. I'll find a
uh,
way.
You have a lovely home, but I would say that at a certain point you're gonna run out of space.
Oh, for sure, it's already happening.
um, Myself, believe it or not, um, I didn't see this. This kind of struck me as odd when I was thinking about it yesterday when I was kind of contemplating this question. I didn't see um, Richard Donner's Superman until I was um, already a teenager, and which looking back is kind of interesting to me because while we both know, and as I've said many times on this podcast, that I had kind of a restricted upbringing, I was allowed to watch things like Star Wars and Jurassic Park. I wasn't allowed to watch Batman, it was too dark. um, but 1978 Superman is about as holistic as you can get. Really, I think, actually, now that I think of it, I do remember. I remember being pretty young and watching Superman 3. I do remember that because I remember the gal getting turned into the robot was something that came not too long after I had seen The Last Crusade and the grand finale of that movie with the old guy being turned into a skeleton, you
Mhm.
know, ruined me for weeks. And
Mhm.
so I remember being pretty scared when the girl was being turned into the robot in during Superman 3. But not nearly as horrified, and that's pretty much all I can recount from seeing that film at that age. Um and then really didn't watch much Superman until Smallville. Got into Smallville, and kind of became obsessed with Superman in my early teenage years, like freshman, sophomore, and um, whatever it is after that. Was it a junior after that? Gosh, it's been a minute since I've been in high school.
Yes,
But yeah,
freshman, sophomore, and junior. Yeah.
those 3 years specifically, I was pretty obsessed with Smallville, and ended up seeing Superman Returns, and really seeing that, and not really being aware that it was low key the third film.
Yep.
Meant
They
to
didn't really
be.
explain that, did they?
No, they didn't.
They just kind
But
of hoped everyone would figure it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. That it very much negates Superman 3 and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Like those films are not meant to exist, and it's supposed to be the trilogy of Superman, Superman 2. I think even more so, the Richard Donner cut of Superman
Absolutely.
2
Absolutely.
and then Superman Returns. But I really enjoyed that film, but didn't felt like I was kind of missing something. And so then that year, 2006, for Christmas, I asked for the box set that had all the Superman movies, including Superman Returns. And I remember I got it Christmas Day, and after everyone opened presents and everything, and we had all hung out all day, we like went and got food or something like that. Or maybe, I think, honestly, I think as soon as the presents and everything kind of died down, I just threw on Superman and watched it for the first time, and just you know knocked my socks off for being 16 or whatever in 2006, and still like as kind of corny and very very like just for lack of a better word, just all around good, the good that kind of permeates that movie, like the fact that like a 16-year-old kid with lots of angst and anger issues would just love that movie, I think really really speaks to the quality of that film. So yeah, I think it what can I say besides the fact that it did have a profound effect on both of us at two very different points in our lives, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about how this film has had an effect on us, I'm sure, in the next couple of hours. But before we get to that film, we're gonna talk about other movies and things that we watched and things that we're looking forward to watching in our first section, the Johnny Horror News. So here at the Johnny Horror News Station, we give updates on horror news, trailers, events, and more. And it's basically just an excuse for Kalen and I to talk about movies in general. So, first and foremost, since this is still the Johnny Horror Podcast, Kalen, have you watched any good horror movies lately?
I watched a movie called Ash recently. That's
What did you think? I watched that too.
Enjoyed it, especially on the budget they made that on. I thought they did a really good job. Yeah. Also, that was a feature film debut for that filmmaker. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Was it Flying Lotus? That's what it was?
Right.
Yeah,
Flying Lotus.
that flick had me, I would say, pretty reeled in for the first three quarters. I think it loses its way a little bit in the final act. But an ambitious film nonetheless, and I really dug the vibes of it. I think it's definitely very much so for the first three quarters of the film. Something that I'd like to go back to because the vibes are there. It feels very video gamey to me.
Yeah.
This gal wakes up in an abandoned space station with her crew dead, and she kind of has to piece together what happened. Um, and it's very moody and creepy and definitely has some, alien-esque tropes that you're familiar with, for better or worse. But like I said, the first three quarters of that film just played like gangbusters for me. I really dug the mystery and intrigue of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched that a couple of weeks ago myself. I have been making like little lists of movies that I must watch every month. So I give myself 5 movies I got to watch every month, and I've been a lot of times I'll kind of do like 3 movies specifically that have like some sort of relationship to one another. Like a couple months back, I did Hammer horror films, so I watched The Curse of Frankenstein, the Horror of Dracula, and the Hammer version of the Mummy, which
Right
is
on.
far better than
Then
the
the Universal
Universal,
version.
the old Universal one.
Yeah.
No one can beat the Brandon Fraser Mummy. I'm sorry, it's just not
Right.
even Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
But this month was kind of a blind spot for me. David Lynch films. So I watched Blue Velvet for the first time, which I thought was a great noir mystery, and I watched Eraserhead a couple of nights ago. Have you seen Eraserhead?
No, Lynch is okay. So I've watched some of that stuff when I was quite young,
Yeah,
but it kind of doesn't count when you're an adult and you're talking about David Lynch,
yeah,
because like you don't really grasp what he's doing there. So
yeah.
I do consider David Lynch a bit of a blind spot for me too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because just specifically the way I work as a creative person and the way I work as a person in general is just like very straightforward. Like I like my ducks in a row and I like things to make sense, and that's just not what you get with a lot of David Lynch stuff. Like I was just like sitting watching Eraserhead and I was like, well, I get what the movie's about, but fuck me if how we get there makes any sense at all. Um, but just without a doubt, just very compelling imagery and just mood for days. Um, we did take our son to go see the latest uh Jurassic World film. Did you have a chance to see that yet?
No, I have not gotten to Jurassic World or F1, unfortunately.
Oh man, that's
Two
see
movies I was looking forward to, but just the way
the
that
way they
time
stacked
has
up.
worked
Yeah.
out. Mhm.
Honestly, the fact that I was able to see F1, Jurassic World, and Superman all the weeks that pretty much the weeks that they came out was kind of astounding to me actually. Um, but my wife is super duper chill in making that sort of stuff happen for me. So, but Jurassic World has some really cool set pieces. The highlight for me is the river raft sequence because that's taken straight out of the original Jurassic novel. So that was something I've been wanting to see put to screen for a while. But I gotta say, man, Formula One is, with the exception of Sinners, is probably my favorite movie
Man,
going experience of the
I
year.
I wanted to see it so badly. Sandy was not interested at all,
Oh man, I
and
wish I would have known. I would have had you come with Brian and I, man. We had a
I
good time.
I would have come with you guys. Yeah, Sandy had no interest at all, and I have one friend who's actually a Formula One fan, like a gearhead, and he couldn't go, and I was just like,
Oh damn.
didn't feel like going by myself, and yeah, didn't get around to it. So we'll see.
Yeah, Brian and I saw it. Excuse me, Brian and I saw it in D box too, and I
Oh
I
well,
gotta tell you, man, I've seen a couple movies in D box, but nothing compares because just the way that this movie is shot, you're already being put in the driver's seat, and then just having the seat move with the car and everything.
just
Just a
just knowing who made it, like just
yeah,
knowing who made it and what it was, and just seeing the trailers before any reviews came out, I was like, man, that movie's gonna be a blast.
yeah.
Like I just knew it.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that's like we've talked a lot about like how I stay away from movie trailers, but like
Mhm.
I watched and rewatched like all the Formula One trailers
Mhm.
again and again and again because I was just like, dude, I it looks so cool, and it was. I highly recommend if you can swing it, you got to see it in theaters, man. That's the way it's meant to be seen for sure.
Okay.
Um, How about anything specifically that now that you've seen your movie that you were most looking forward to this year? Is
Mhm.
there anything that you're still pretty stoked on? Looking for the back half of 2025?
Big time. So obviously Nerd, Fantastic Four, but next
Yeah.
month, yeah, I'm excited for that. But next month, Weapons.
Yes.
Very excited for Weapons, Zach Krager's follow up to Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
And then in November, I'm gonna be eating in November because there's Edgar Wright is directing an adaptation of Stephen King's The Running Man, and that's starring
Yeah.
Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. Edgar Wright always delivers. And then there's gonna be Predator Badlands,
Yes.
which Dan Trachtenberg, is
Yeah.
that his name? He
Yep.
has not let me down yet, and I thought the last two Predator movies were badass.
Yes.
Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is one of the this half of the decade, one of my most anticipated movies.
Yes.
And then after all that, the sequel to Wicked, which ended up being really good. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be busy in November.
I think I'll probably fuck around with the Wicked movies when I 'cause, it's not really my jam, but I've heard
Mhm.
so many good things that I'm like, you know what, if it comes to streaming, I'd double feature the shit out of that. I'd have fun with that.
I will tell you that, just like as someone who knows you, Wicked will be your jam
Yeah.
because
Well, I mean,
good movies are your jam.
yeah, and I mean, it's like, come on, folks, it's the Wizard of Oz. Like,
It's the Wizard of Oz, and it's
uh,
done so beautifully. Yeah.
yeah, I've heard it's just a kick-ass flick. So,
Mhm.
I hope that they stick the landing for the second one.
Me too.
Um, but Weapons is something I am incredibly excited for. I can't really talk too much about it. I watched the trailer, and while I feel like ordinarily I'd be like, man, like I don't want to know anything going into that movie. I still feel like I know nothing about
Yep.
this movie other than it looks fucking kick ass
Mhm.
and could quite possibly be like the sleeper hit of the year for me. I don't want to like get too hyped, but like it was a movie I completely forgot about until I heard somebody mention it again. I was like, oh fuck yeah, I still have that to look forward to.
Yep. That's coming soon.
Um Also, what you said with Frankenstein quite possibly could be the crown jewel of Frankenstein movies. Like it,
Right.
after seeing that trailer, I'm just so blown away, and I'm like, I can't even say that I want to keep my expectations in check. I kind of want to let them run wild
How
because
can you?
yeah,
It's the greatest of all time doing an adaptation of the greatest of all time. Like,
yeah,
how can you not be? Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
How can you
just
not be pumped about
hyped.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So there's that, and then in the world of Stephen King, we also have The Long Walk coming out. Adaptation of I do believe is a short story of his, and that looks really good too. Like I never read the book, never read the story or anything like that, but um, it's got a cool young cast. The premise just seems really interesting, and I think we could have like a nice, lean, brutal thriller on our hands. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And
I forgot about that
then,
one. I agree.
yeah. Um, then Black Phone 2. Did you see Black Phone?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I love Black Phone.
I thought that was a really solid flick. Really enjoyed it. Ethan Hawke really can do no wrong. In my eyes. I just watched late last year. I watched that science fiction movie of his. The name escapes me. It's the time travel one, and it was like one of the best time travel movies I've ever seen in my life. It was fantastic. Um, but dude, the trailer for Black Phone 2 looks fucking scary, dude. It
Mhm.
looks like a fucking proper slasher movie.
It looks like an
With
80s movie, doesn't it?
yes,
Like, it
it does. I
really looks
mean,
like an
it
80s movie. Yeah.
there's that great shot of him on skating on the ice with an axe or whatever, which is very much a direct callback to an 80s slasher. I do believe it's a Canadian film called Curtains, and there's this old lady or this lady wearing a hag mask, and she has like a fucking scythe, and she's on skates, and it's truly a terrifying sequence. So like seeing that shot in the trailer for Black Phone 2 just like immediately sent chills down my spine, and it seems all kinds of fucked up. And because the original film is based on Joe Hill's story, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
You know, they probably had to keep it in line somewhat with that, but I think all bets are off with this one, so they can just kind of let loose and do whatever they want, which is really cool because
they actually collaborated with Joe Hill on this one too, even though it's not based on a short story.
Well, I think you'd be kind of silly not to, because you know, that'd be like, you know, doing a Stephen King adaptation, and then
it'd be like doing Pet Sematary 2 without Stephen King involved. What kind of idiot would do that?
That's exactly what I was thinking. And no shade, because I know there are fans of that movie out there. I have not seen it. I feel like I need to.
It's a pretty enjoyable, stupid movie.
Yeah.
It's a pretty enjoyable movie, yeah.
I feel like I would probably have fun watching it, but that's also because I've been able to distance myself from the OG Pet Sematary. I think also seeing the remake and being, you know, having mixed feelings on that probably helped, because Pet Sematary is my favorite Stephen King story, and so I held that pretty close to my heart for a long time, and was so stoked for the remake, and then just was like, didn't quite hit the mark for me. But anyways, I digress. I have high hopes for Black Phone 2. And I don't know, man. I feel like we have a pretty solid back half of the year to look forward to. I thought the first half of the year was solid. So I feel really really excited going in to the latter half of 2025. I think we're going to get some good stuff, and there's probably some good stuff that we don't even know about.
It's going to sneak up on us. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough talking about movies. Let's talk about booze. Here at Johnny's Well, we discuss our second favorite thing, alcohol. We got a couple of bartenders here, people who like making alcohol. Sir, are you drinking anything tonight? What do you got going on over there? I saw you sipping on something just now.
I've got Coke Zero, and I've got berry flavored sparkling water.
Oh, lovely.
No booze. Yeah.
Hey, I'm right there with you, pal. I got myself a 7-Up zero sugar chilling in the fridge that I'm gonna crack open right now. I gotta tell you about these, man. If you haven't found these this shit is bitching. So it's the brand Polar, no free plugs, but they have it's just seltzer water, but they have a ginger lime mule flavored. I got this at Winco. Again, no free plugs. But I shit you not, I love sipping on this. Tastes like I'm drinking a Moscow Mule.
Right on.
And it's 0 calories, so I get the taste without the guilt. 10 out of 10 recommend, folks. Well, buddy boy, if you were to, and this actually more so than any other time I've asked you this question, I feel like there's potential for this possibility. But if you were gonna have a Superman party and invite all your pals over to watch Superman and have yourself a little fiesta, what drink would you be serving with this flick?
So it's a little bit on the simple side, but it's what I had the night I watched it.
Oh, hell yeah.
I made myself, so I made some raspberry syrup. So I just made some simple syrup. I muddled up a lot of raspberries. I doused the raspberries in the simple syrup. And then you just let that sit in the fridge for 24 hours. And then you strain out all the raspberries, and you're left with a raspberry syrup with great texture. And then I just made myself a bourbon Collins with the raspberry syrup. So I just did 3/4 of an ounce of raspberry syrup, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice, and 2 ounces of good Kentucky bourbon. Not something too high rye. You want something a little on the more a little bit more on the smooth side.
Uh-huh.
Shake that up, strain that into a tall cup with some ice, like a Collins glass with some ice, and top that up with some soda water. Man,
Hit the spot, huh?
it was killer, bro. It was amazing. I was crushing them so fast that I had to just sit there and ignore my empty glass. Because I was like, if I make these as fast as I finish them, I'm gonna be unconscious in an hour. Yeah.
So wait, what were you drinking them before you went to the movie, or?
No, when I got home.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so that after you got home, you're like, okay, now I've seen the movie and I'm gonna get good and proper drunk.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Also, they come out a beautiful red color that very much goes with the theme.
Yeah. Well, that was my thought, as it usually is. I'm very, color based with all of my drinks. They'll have to match the colors of the movie. So I'm fed up with doing blue drinks. I just don't want to do blue drinks anymore. I did a blue drink like the last podcast we did for Jaws. I'm sick of it. So I was like, oh, I got nothing. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go trashy, and it's not gonna be a drink for Superman, but it's gonna be a drink for Guy Gardner. And so
right.
I'm just going with a Midori sour, man, because it's green, and you know what? It's tasty. It goes down smooth, but it's kind of a for lack of a better word, pardon me here, folks, but it's kind of a skanky drink, and Guy Gardner's kind of a skank. So
no, he would, dude. Guy Gardner would for sure order a Midori sour. It's
absolutely
so on point. Yeah.
Look at that haircut, man. But yeah, so the way I make my Midori sours at my gig is pretty simple as well. I do 3/4 of an ounce simple, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. I do about 2 ounces of Midori. No, pardon me here. I do slightly less simple in my Midori sour, so I do about half an ounce of simple and a full ounce of lemon juice because the Midori is so sweet. And the one thing that I kind of do differently than I think probably anybody else that works there is I also put a couple of dashes of fee foam bitters in there, just like I would with a whiskey sour, because I still kind of dig that foam layer on top. And put a Luxardo cherry on top. You got yourself a beautiful drink. I also do it with one big rock in there, so it is a nice, pretty green, classy glass, and we dress it up nice, even though once again it
put
is
lipstick
kind of
on a pig.
damn straight. But by golly, if I don't take a straw test every time and go, God damn, whoever gets to drink that, they should come up and shake my hand, because I found a way to make that drink look and taste pretty good. But I digress. Speaking of looking and tasting good, we always ask this question on this horror podcast. Eventually, we're gonna get to a movie that this really applies to. But do you consider this an eating film? Is there anything in this movie that was like, nah, I ruined my appetite?
No, I'm okay.
Guy Gardner's haircut once again ruined my appetite. But besides that, everything is on point. All right, gang. Well, now that we're nice and boozed up, and we've talked about movies, we've talked about booze, we're rocking and rolling, we're feeling it. We're gonna head on to our next section entitled "Blah Blah Blah." You've seen it all before. What? In this section, we just kind of go over the plot of the film, and we're also going to talk about what our viewing experience was like. So, Kalen, do me a quick favor. Sum up the plot of this film to the best of your ability, and then we're going to talk about what it was like when we got to sit down and watch this movie. All right.
Sure. Without spoiling it, this movie joins a youngish Man of Steel relatively early in his adventures. In his first run-in with Lex Luthor, whose machinations provide Superman with a greater challenge than he's ever experienced before, and whose revelations shake him to his core and give him a crisis of faith that he has never experienced. It's about how he deals with that.
God, you're so good at that, and I feel like you just come up with it on the fly too. Like you don't have notes prepared for that. You're so
No.
good every time, man. That's why I love handing it off to you. Um, so I feel like your viewing experience was just a smidge more special than mine. So I'll just get mine out of the way really quick. I had originally thought that I would probably see this movie with you, but I was a little late in the game in scheduling that. So I wasn't able to see it with you, but our buddy Christian had run it past me probably a week or two before that he was going to go to like a 10:45 showing when he got out of work. And so I told him that I would probably tag along for that. So I met up with him, and he had been there a little bit, and he already has pizza and his booze. So I got myself some pop and some other pop. I got myself some soda pop and some popcorn and some peanut M&Ms because I'm a lush. And yeah, man, we went and saw it in whatever their big screen thing is. It's not IMAX, but it's the biggest screen that they have at River Park. And
Oh yeah, the Cinemark XD.
yeah, that's what it is. It was great. We like sitting in that first row with the bar before you go all the way down. So it's just a clean exit should you need to make a run for the bathroom. But I got to tell you, man, a lot of movies like I find myself like having an urgent, oh fuck, I got to go pee, and thankfully I did not have to get up from this movie once. So, but that was my viewing experience. What about yours, sir?
I went down to what is now called the TLC Chinese Theater in Hollywood, the famous theater in Hollywood. They have a gigantic IMAX theater right up front.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually only ever been there once. I went there to watch Rogue One on opening night back in
Nice.
December of 2016, and it was really awesome. I really love the venue. And so yeah, I went down there at 5 p.m. on the opening Thursday night with my girlfriend and a friend of ours, and we went and caught it there. And it was really cool. It was felt like a crowd that was very excited to be seeing that movie. And
Yeah.
there's something special about watching a movie like that with a crowd that really is really excited to be there. There's a certain electricity and a certain communal experience to it.
Yeah, that's what some would say is the reason that we go to the movies.
Oh yeah, it is.
I had a similar crowd. We had a pretty full house for that time of night. There's one thing you remember the good old days of going to see midnight showings. When you would just have a fucking packed house because people wanted to see it before anybody else. And then they started doing more and more showings. It went from 11 o'clock showing to 10 o'clock showing to, now it'd be like now it's I think you can get in as early as like 5 o'clock on a Thursday.
I went at 5 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So, but at 10:45, we still had a good amount of people in there, and the energy was good. Um, seemed like people were having a good time watching it too. Um, so in terms of just plot, do you think do you can you think of whether it be a Superman movie or uh, a Superman story or a superhero story in general? Anything that feels like we've done this before or we've seen this before, just in terms of blah blah blah, we've seen it all before. Do you think there are some beats in this that you can say, oh yeah, we've tread on that, or no, this all feels very, very new and original? Just your quick thoughts.
Just real quick, but before we get into this, I just want to say we're going to spoil the entire movie.
We
in
are
this
very much
podcast.
so. Yes.
So if you haven't seen it, I would urge you to pause this episode, watch the movie, and then come back and listen to this podcast. You don't want to ruin this movie for yourself, and you'll also get more out of this podcast if you know what we're talking about. So just throwing that out there. So
Appreciate
spoiler
that.
warning, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I felt like this movie drew I felt like it drew a little bit specifically from a couple of comic books.
Mhm.
It's not one comic. It's not like an adaptation of one story.
Yeah.
But immediately in the aftermath of the Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985, they rebooted Superman, and a comic book creator named John Byrne did a story called Man of Steel. And in that story, Clark, who thinks he loves Krypton, learns that Krypton wasn't as awesome as he thought it was.
Yeah.
And that his parents were maybe not exactly the kind of people he wanted to be. So there's some of that here. There's the specific rivalry with Lex Luthor, and the characterization of Lex Luthor reminds me very much of Superman Birthright and All-Star Superman, the comic books, which those are the two Superman comics. If you want to get into that kind of thing, that I would recommend those. And then interestingly, plot-wise, I felt like it had a little bit of similarity to the Batman, in that we meet an early version of this iconic superhero who's already donned the outfit and is already on the adventures. But we meet them at a moment earlier in their careers where the first time they face a real challenge, and not only an external challenge, but an internal challenge in the form of finding out that their parents might not have been who they thought they were.
Very well put, sir. Very, very well put. All right. Well, without any further ado, we are going to get into the very, very long and interesting history of how James Gunn's Superman came to be. And in order to do that, we have to go all the way back to 2013, ladies and gentlemen. So away we go. In 2013, a little film called The Man of Steel was released. Now, Kalen, you were there with me, were you not? Did we not see The Dark Knight Rises together? We
did.
saw that together, right?
We did.
And that was, aside from that awesome film, the big takeaway was the Man of Steel teaser, right?
Yep, that's right.
And I think we were all pretty fucking hyped off of that teaser.
We were pumped up. Yeah.
And I can safely say that all the subsequent trailers had me just as hyped, if not more hyped. Like, I was fucking pumped for Man of Steel. But that film comes out. It is successful, but not as successful as Warner Brothers wants it to be. So instead of them putting the right foot forward and doing a Man of Steel sequel properly, the suits decide that Superman is not strong enough on his own to draw audiences, and so they decide to put forth plans for a Batman versus Superman film. Your quick thoughts, we're not going to do a full review, but your quick thoughts on Man of Steel.
So this was the year after the Avengers came out.
Yeah.
And I was very, very high on the MCU. I'd say as high as anybody.
Yeah.
But my most anticipated movie of 2013 was Man of Steel. That was the one that I could not wait to see. So I was over the moon excited for this movie. My thoughts overall on the movie, I mean, I like it. I liked it and I still like it. It, in retrospect, is not necessarily a great Superman movie.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a perfect characterization or in tone as a Superman film. And there are things in it that I think aren't as good as other things in it. But overall, I still really like it as just like a weird, awesome science fiction movie, and
Yeah.
as sort of an alternative take on like Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, another writer gets their hands on the Superman property and writes a version of Superman as in like that in a comic, you'd be like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, that's that
Right.
version of that
Mhm.
Superman.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I think I've always had a little bit of a fondness for it. I think again, like there's pluses and minuses, and
Mhm.
um it's interesting to see how the rest of the DCEU plays out in
Mhm.
comparison to that film. But I do think out of the whole DCEU, it's one of the stronger films for me
Absolutely.
personally. Um, so Batman v Superman comes out 3 years later and is once again successful, but not as successful as the studio would like. It is the highest grossing movie with Superman in the title,
Mhm.
basically. But I think the opening weekend is still only 166 million, which is really only 40 million more than what Superman did this past weekend. So
Well, the problem with that one though was that because the opening weekend was like a $420 million worldwide,
yeah,
so it opened huge. The
yeah,
problem was it had like a 70+% drop off in its second weekend,
absolutely.
so I just kind of
Yeah,
felt like audiences rejected the movie.
yes.
Yeah.
And there's many, many reasons why. Because you know, well, we'll get to that in just a second, just a hair.
Mhm.
Um, So, critical analysis is much harsher for this film than even its predecessor, claiming it's too dark and that Superman specifically lacks his original character traits of hope, kindness, and is drawn far too somber and anxious than his previous interpretations. I think all of those things were very present in Man of Steel, but they felt like it was all doubled down in Batman v Superman. Um, So, your quick thoughts on Batman v Superman before we continue?
Yeah, I think that the problems with the movie are actually a little bit more complicated than that, and that it would take kind of like a whole ass podcast to talk about. But I
Absolutely.
would just say generally, like, I don't think he was interested in doing a Batman and Superman movie. I
Yeah.
think he was interested in using Batman and Superman as vehicles to do his own sort of Excalibur style mythological epic of his
Yeah.
own accord, something that's more of a Gen X edgy 1980s comics style, but didn't to me feel so much like a movie about either of those two characters, honestly.
Yes. That's fair. Um so Warner Brothers continues to push forward with its cinematic universe, now officially labeled the DC Extended Universe, with other films such as Aquaman, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman, and most importantly, Justice League. All of these films have varying degrees of success, and while some see critical praise, the overall consensus is that the DCEU is no match for Marvel and lacks the solid foundation for building a cohesive and thoughtful narrative. Justice League in particular falls short of expectations, is critically maligned, and even sees for the very first time the fan base clamor so loudly for a director's cut that we get the infamous Snyder Cut controversy that ends with Warner Brothers Studios releasing a 4-hour version of Justice League years later on HBO Max. Now, we've talked about this before. I do believe you favor the Joss Whedon cut of
The
Justice
theatrical
League, right?
cut, yeah. Um,
Uh,
I wouldn't. It's not so much I favor it as it's like I think both movies have strengths and weaknesses, but there are things that I like more about the theatrical cut for sure.
that's fair. The thing that I like is that we get with Snyder's version, it feels very it's all there. I
Yeah.
feel like for me, a big thing with the theatrical cut is it feels very patched, you know?
It's a complete Frankenstein of a movie.
Yeah.
It's not Zack Snyder's vision. It's not Joss Whedon's vision. It's no one's complete movie. It's just a hodgepodge of stuff.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep.
So, during this time, director James Gunn is busy making films with Marvel Studios while also producing films such as Brightburn, a film based on the concept of what if Superman was born evil? And if you've seen that movie, you can kind of see a through line to what we get in this film too.
Yeah.
They're very much the antithesis of one another, I believe. In 2018, Gunn comes under fire for resurfaced tweets that many found to be inappropriate and offensive. Walt Disney Studios, the parent company and owner of Marvel, swiftly fired Gunn to distance themselves from the controversy. Many of Gunn's friends and co-workers quickly came forward to speak up in favor of Gunn, with a handful of his Guardians of the Galaxy cast flat out refusing to return to their respective roles without Gunn at the helm. Do you remember this time period, and do you remember your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was a James Gunn fan before the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really loved the Guardians of the Galaxy. The first two movies, they were actually like really personally important movies for me. So when they fired him, I was pretty heartbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was the weakest corporate move ever. I actually think it's crazy that no one has taken the fall for that publicly yet, because firing him was a straight up idiotic move. And like from a studio standpoint, you gave one of your greatest talents, you handed him over to the competition.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy that no one has publicly eaten shit for that decision, because someone made that call and that person has not fessed up to it to this day. And I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I remember vividly where I was when I saw this. This is kind of wild to me that I still remember this so clearly, but I was like sitting on the patio at California Pizza Kitchen. I was on my lunch break, and I remember just scrolling through my phone and saw that. And this is very much during the time of Me Too and cancel culture just being kind of at its height.
So it was our mutual friend who texted me about that. I didn't know that happened. And one of our friends texted me and said, "That's a shame about James Gunn." And I was like, "Oh no, what happened?" And then the follow-up text said, accountability is one thing, but not letting people grow and not giving people the opportunity to become better people is not the pathway to a better society.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, hell yeah. It's kind of funny though. What James Gunn got canceled for was basically the kind of edgelord jokes that were very common and popular at the time. Like, if you go back to 2008, 2009, Twitter was an unserious shitposting website. I say website because it wasn't an app yet. It was a website. And it was a place where people would go and they would shitpost with their friends.
Yeah.
And he was making inappropriate and poor taste, but he was making edgelord jokes that were like, that was what stand-up comedians did on stage at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was the common thing. And he was a B-movie horror maker and a punk rocker. He was a provocateur. He was an edgelord. Like that was his whole shtick.
Yeah.
This is back when he would show up at his movie premieres with a porn star on each arm. You know what I mean? And they weren't just there for show. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he had a different persona at the time. And yeah, it was pretty crazy to me that like 10 years later he was fired for just a bunch of edgy sort of jokes on the internet. I was like pretty taken aback by that. And even before we found out what happened, I was sure he was going to land somewhere else because he had just made two huge, successful, well-liked movies. So I was like, whether it's Universal, whether it's Paramount, whether it's Warner Brothers, like someone's going to pick this guy up immediately. And then it was like 2 days later we found out they had. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think very much what you said. I think that the thing that shocked me the most was not necessarily that he was fired, but how quickly he was fired. Where a lot of times there's like, well, there's that all the bureaucracy around it of like, oh, we're looking into it, we're having a full investigation, blah blah blah. This man was just fired, and it was just like, yeah, no, they're done with him. Like, and you're just like, whoa, like that's wow, like that's, and again, he never seemed to come out with the kind of ridiculous like speech long apology that all the agents make these people say, blah blah blah, I'm not guilty of this, that, or the other, I think that, so and so will find, I mean, obviously it's on the internet, so there's only so much deniability that you have, but never, it just seemed like he kind of crawled into a shell, and not in a like hiding way, just like that he just got his balls kicked in, and he didn't really know what to do. He just, you know, felt like he lost big time. And then his words were, I was watching an interview with him today, that he hadn't really felt a lot of love and compassion in a lot of areas of his life, but that night after he got fired, he went to bed feeling so loved because so many people had reached out to him and told him that they were there for him and that it was going to be all right, and he felt better than he had in a lot of other parts of his life in that moment, because so many people showed their love and kindness to him. And then yeah, I think we'll get here in just a minute, but it's only a few days later that Warner Brothers reaches out to him.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. A few days after Gunn was fired by Disney, Warner Brothers chairman Toby Emmerich reached out to see if Gunn would be interested in joining the DCEU. And while Gunn was initially hesitant to do another superhero film, he was interested in the offer because he had always been a big fan of DC Comics. So while all this is going on, Henry Cavill, who had played Superman throughout the course of the DCEU, has a lot of back and forth with the suits at WB. He manages to turn in a number of cameo appearances in other superhero flicks, but never in another standalone film. Many filmmakers try to get a new Supes movie off the ground, including a revamped version with an African-American actor taking the lead role, with Michael B. Jordan being heavily considered to take on the mantle. Do you remember this? Do you remember the talks about all this?
Mm-hmm. I do.
This for a hot minute there, it seemed like we were gonna get a black Superman.
It did. Mm-hmm.
I was pretty interested in seeing that. I really like Michael B. Jordan, and he definitely just has that charismatic charm that would lend itself to, Clark Kent, Man of Steel. Is there anything in the comics? Has there ever been a black Superman in the comics?
There are quite a few of them, actually.
Are they Clark Kent variants, or are they different characters?
So one of them is from another universe. His name is Calvin Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not exactly a Clark Kent variant, but he is the last son of Krypton on his Earth.
Uh-huh.
And he becomes Superman in the same way. And he actually becomes the president of the United States.
Oh wow.
And he and our Superman meet in an interdimensional journey, and they get along like a house on fire. They really like each other. And then there's another Superman from DC Earth Prime proper named Val Zod, who is another Kryptonian. I can't actually remember his exact origin story, but he's a Kryptonian who inexplicably survived it all, and he is also a young black man, and he's also, when he gets to Earth, becomes a hero. Nice. So there are black Supermen, and our Superman does fuck with them. So
nice.
So you can't say they're not allowed to do black Superman, because they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been done.
It's been done.
Talks officially start with Gunn and Warner Brothers in January 2019, with the WB offering Gunn the opportunity to take a stab at a soft reboot of Superman. Gunn was unsure if he could creatively find a way forward with Superman in a way that would do the character justice, and so, as he put it, took the easier path to direct a soft reboot of the Suicide Squad instead. Your thoughts on both Suicide Squad movies? Go.
The 2016 Suicide Squad kind of sucks.
A lot.
And Yeah, if you recall, I was actually incredibly excited for that movie.
I was too. Very
Because
excited.
especially the first trailer made it look like this
Oh, dude.
awesome.
Great.
It looked so cool. Anyway, apparently the Warner Brothers took over Final Cut and gave the movie over to a trailer editing company to put together. So the movie we get really isn't the movie David Ayer wrote, or even really the movie that he shot. That movie kind of sucks. 2021's The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, I think is excellent. I think it's I think it's fantastic. It's well written. It's fun as hell. It's got great emotional character arcs for every character, and it builds into a beautiful crescendo at the end. It's a really solid movie.
Yeah. Is that one like? Is it? Because I know Peacemaker's canon. Is that one still kind of canon, or is it been cut out?
He's saying that will be sort of explained in the new season of Peacemaker.
Uh-huh.
But the simple way of putting it is that we are now in a new canon. Like, this is a new universe.
Yeah.
But those characters exist in both universes, and similar events happened.
Got it.
So, like, one for one, like The Suicide Squad, or one for one, the first season of Peacemaker didn't necessarily happen exactly as we see them in those, but something similar enough to continue those characters and stories did happen. And he said anytime they reference a specific event from them, then that event did happen, and then it becomes canon.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do what you want, King. You're the boss now.
That's right.
With financial failures such as Black Adam, Birds of Prey, and even Gunn's own take on the Suicide Squad, and the creative missteps of Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Wonder Woman 1984, and The Flash, with a new merger with Discovery Inc., Warner Brothers, now labeled Warner Brothers Discovery, led by the newly appointed CEO David Zaslav, decided to wipe the slate clean and start with a solid foundation for the future of DC comic films. After lengthy negotiations with James Gunn, he agrees to head the DC Comics studios with his friend and producing partner, Peter Safran, as co-chairs, with Safran managing the more technical and financial aspect, and Gunn leading the creative department. So he said multiple times, a lot of people in the interviews that I've seen with him constantly, compare him to Kevin Feige, and he is always the first one to say, no, that's not what I do. What Kevin Feige does is he's a mastermind at what he does. He's fantastic at what he does. He's like, I can't do it without Peter Safran. Safran handles all that mumbo jumbo that a
Safran's
CEO
all the
needs to
business,
do.
and he's all the creative.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. He said that was the only way he was ever taking the gig. It is also during this transitional period that Gunn discovers a way in which he feels he can creatively reinvigorate the character of Superman for the big screen and begins to work on a new script with the potential for him to direct. As the script comes to fruition, it becomes clear to Safran and Gunn that their version of the character is going to be younger and more optimistic than what we had seen previously in the DCEU. So they end up meeting with Cavill, who had basically been waiting in the wings this whole time, to let him know their decision to move forward with another actor. Your thoughts on Henry Cavill as Superman and how he was treated?
Henry Cavill got treated poorly. I mean, like, Warner Brothers management, in particular, the people they had in charge of the DCEU, the DC Films division of Warner Brothers Pictures at the time, they treated him terribly. They dicked him around. They didn't want to pay him. They wouldn't let. I mean, they had really interesting people trying to do Superman movies. Matthew Vaughn, showed up with a pitch for a Man of Steel 2 that was going to be more the tone of Superman that we wanted, and they blew him right off. Like, nah, no, thank you. They even said we don't think modern audiences can connect to a character like Superman. He's outdated, which made me feel things that I should not say out loud.
Mhm.
But yeah, they absolutely dicked Henry around. They didn't treat him right. I felt bad for him, especially because he just never really got to do the role the way that he wanted to. Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, he didn't really get to do what he wanted. Even in, Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's not really Superman in that movie either. He actually expressed some excitement at the reshoots for the theatrical cut of Justice League because he was like, hey, I get to actually play Superman in a couple scenes here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely feel bad for him that things never quite went the way that he wanted them to. On the other hand, getting the role of Superman turned him into a successful actor and a movie star. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's exactly crying over it. But I do think it sucks he never quite got his shot. I also think it was the right move to move on. Like I don't think that continuing the legacy of Man of Steel and that whole era was the right way to start over. I think you needed to bring in a fresh new actor with a whole new take and a whole new world.
I agree. I agree 100%. James Gunn finished his script in early 2023, just before the writer's strike. It was then also announced that he would be directing, and so soon began the search for the new Superman and the rest of the cast that would populate the world of Gunn's new vision. For casting, actors were asked to send in video auditions. Among those up for the role of Superman were Jacob Elordi, Tom Brittney, Andrew Richardson, Nicholas Hoult, and David Corenswet, who Gunn had seen in the horror film Pearl and had stood out to him. Do you remember him in Pearl?
Hell yeah, I do.
Yeah.
He's a projectionist.
Yeah. God, when I remember seeing him in that, and I thought he was somebody else, like specifically in that role, he reminded me of another actor, and right now I can't think of who it is. But I really liked him. I thought he was charming and fucking handsome as fuck. And then I remember watching Twisters, and about halfway through Twisters, there's this kind of snarky, like, dick of a guy who's like one of the techie nerd bros or whatever. And I was like, son of a bitch, that's the guy who's gonna be Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that he was this really kind of dick of a character, because I was like, oh, that's great. Now we get to see, like, now we get to see him do the complete opposite, be the most likable character ever.
Mm-hmm.
After many audition tapes were narrowed down to a handful of hopefuls, in-person screen tests as well as chemistry tests with potential Lois Lane actresses took place in Burbank, California. The role of Lois Lane would be awarded to Rachel Brosnahan of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel comedy series on Amazon, while the coveted role of the Man of Steel went to Corenswet, who James Gunn said had only about an hour to tell his loved ones he had got the part before it became public knowledge. Nicholas Hoult, who had also been in the running to play Bruce Wayne in Matt Reeves' The Batman, I think what I read was that he was like the runner-up to
He was the runner-up for both roles for the Batman, and he was the runner-up for Superman as well.
It's wild, right? It's
Mhm.
wild.
Yep.
He was eventually cast as Lex Luthor, later admitting to himself that he was probably better suited for the role rather than Superman. He was talking about it, and he said that in reading some of the dialogue scenes for Superman when he was doing his screen tests, he was reading some of the Lex Luthor lines, and just he found himself being more and more kind of intrigued by that part. But he said that he owed it to himself to go for the gold, basically, and try and get the Superman role. Filming began in February 2024. Things were a little touch and go due to both the writer's strike and the actor's strike, but Gunn assured fans that they would still make the July 2025 release date. They primarily filmed in Cincinnati, Ohio, and more importantly, Cleveland, Ohio, which, can you tell me why it's so important, sir?
Superman was created in Cleveland, Ohio.
There it is, by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. The Hall of Justice, the Justice Gang's headquarters, was filmed at the Cincinnati Union Terminal, which was the original inspiration for the fictional location in the comics, with Cleveland's Leader Building serving as a stand-in for the Daily Planet. Filming wrapped on July 30th, 2024, almost exactly a year until the film's release date. Anything to add for any of that? Anything that you've heard or read or anything like that? I kind of got most of the interesting stuff. Filming itself seemed to go off pretty much without a hitch. You know, it was all it seemed like everyone had a pretty good time, and that there wasn't really complications once they got to filming. I know the actor strike kind of put a little bit of a strain on when they could film and stuff like that, but I think once that got all sorted out, they were off to the races.
Well, they also shot in Norway, in northern Norway, in the actual Arctic for the scenes outside the Fortress of Solitude.
That's really dope.
That's all real on location. In fact, when you see David Corenswet laying there in the snow and the ice, that's real. The shots in the beginning where you see like the snow and all that, that's not sets, it's not CG, that's real. When Superman is flying through the Arctic, that's drone footage flying through. It's all real, it's all practical. They shot on location a lot in this movie as much as they could. And then the other thing is, this is not like officially, this is not an officially proven fact here. This is speculation, but I want to say it was about a month or a month and a half before James Gunn announced he was going to direct the movie. James Gunn, Peter Safran, and David Zaslav were seen having lunch with Steven Spielberg.
Interesting.
And I believe Gunn was pitching him Superman, because there was another DC movie that Spielberg was interested in before with the old regime called The Blackhawks, about a team of World War I and II adventure pilot guys. And James Gunn has since come out and said that Spielberg has not come to him about that at all. So the only thing I can think of is I think he was pitching Spielberg Superman, since Spielberg had been the first choice to do Superman way back in the 1970s. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I think James Gunn was his own second choice.
Well, I think any director wisely would be their own second choice to Steven Spielberg, you know?
100%.
That's great. I like that. And I didn't know about I mean, I knew that I remember reading that they did some stuff in the Antarctic, but I didn't realize, like, you know, like you kind of think, oh, that's just like establishing shots and stuff like that. The fact that they're all out there during that, that's really cool. I want more of that, particularly in comparison to, you know, no shade, but Marvel movies that
shooting everything on a green screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 1000%.
I also thought, like, I genuinely like was thinking while I was watching the movie how different the city felt in comparison to other big cities like we've seen. You know, I think Nolan was pretty revolutionary in doing like Chicago for Gotham back when he did that. Now I feel like it's less of a big deal. We probably see a lot more Chicago, but you know, in comparison to just doing New York and Los Angeles all the time. And then I thought probably the most inspired thing was Matt Reeves shooting in, you know, the UK for Gotham City. I still think that's just genius, and I love that they did that, because that is just my favorite Gotham, is the one in Matt Reeves' The Batman. But I shit you not, even watching the trailers, I felt like they had taken the animated series of Superman that they did in the 90s, and then like they made it real. That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
it feels like Metropolis in ways that Metropolis in, you know, 1978 is New
It's New
York.
York City. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, filming in a place like Cleveland is insane to me. Because it's just not a place that's shot,
Mhm.
and that lends itself to it feeling so different than anything we've seen on screen. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect of the film. Just it felt like we were in Metropolis in ways that other Superman movies just have not. So I definitely think that was a plus for that. But here I am rambling about the stuff I liked about the movie, and we're not even to the good stuff yet. So what the heck? We've already kicked down the door. We might as well walk through. Here at the good stuff, you get one guess what we talk about here. Talk about the stuff we liked about the movie. So I was already kind of leading the charge there, buddy. So why don't you take her away and tell me something that you like about Superman 2025?
Well, I had a conversation with somebody recently. If you talk to comic book fans, like me, like nerdy comic book fans, we get really offended if someone says Superman is boring. You'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. You should try reading, and then we'll list off 14 different runs or miniseries we think you should read so you can see how awesome Superman is. But someone mentioned it to me recently when he said, I don't think when regular people say Superman is boring, I don't think they're necessarily wrong, because if all they have is a good movie from the 1970s and then they only have like Superman Returns and Man of Steel, no shade to those movies, by the way, but if that's all they have, they don't know Superman. They've never met Superman. They don't actually know how cool Superman is. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was like, that's actually a good point. There hasn't been a Superman movie in the 21st century that really captured the character of Superman. So that's where I would start here. Is I would say the tone of this movie and the characterization in this movie, it doesn't feel like Zack Snyder trying to do a Christopher Nolan tone in an alien invasion movie. It doesn't feel like Bryan Singer trying to elicit the feelings of the 1970s that he had when he was watching Richard Donner's Superman. It felt like someone was just trying to make an honest to goodness Superman film.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's present in the tone. I feel like it's present in the characterization of Superman. And I feel like it's present in the world that they inhabit.
Yeah. I agree.
In a way that we haven't seen as much. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think you said it best in that the movies that we've gotten, at least when you and I were old enough to go to the movie theater, they've been people emulating other things. The focus has been less on Superman himself and more on either how do we reinvent the character or how do we do what's come before, or redo what's come before. And that was something that was prevalent to me even from the trailers, was that this is a movie. It's I can't say it with all honesty that this is a Superman movie, but it is a Superman comic movie, because the world is so big and there's so many characters that, you know, to just think of it in terms of a Superman movie the way that we see 1978, which very much follows that character. We're just in this comic book world right out the gate, and it's populated with these characters. And Superman is there, but there's also Green Lantern and Hawk Girl and stuff like that. So I think it was. I don't know. I do think that the intent of, we're gonna tell a Superman story and not worry about trying to make homages and, following somebody else's footsteps. I think that was very refreshing.
What I would say, when you say Superman comic book story, that's kind of what I'm saying is this feels more like a real adaptation of Superman comics than really any Superman movie ever has. Obviously, Richard Donner's was to a degree in its time, but this one, if we had never gotten a Superman movie before and we were going to adapt Superman in 2025 for an audience that knows what superheroes are, for an audience that's seen Endgame, you would not spend so much time trying to hold the audience's hand through the story. You would bring them into a world where Superman exists.
Yeah.
And I felt like this did that accurately in a way that you don't see for a lot of these characters.
Me personally, first thing I have listed here is the cast. I like James Gunn is a master of casting actors. I think, he single-handedly made Chris Pratt's career.
He 100% did. He gave that guy his career as a movie star.
Yeah. And, probably even somebody like Dave Bautista, who, no shade to Chris Pratt, but I think Dave Bautista might have bigger chops.
Of course. Of course he does. You're being diplomatic there, but yeah, he's a better actor.
But, just David Cornsweet, just wow. So good. And I loved
100%.
I loved that the little anecdote that I read that when James Gunn offered him the role, he said the only exception is that you treat everyone on the film and all the fans with the utmost kindness that you would want to receive in return, basically. And I think he had asked the same thing of Chris Pratt, doing Guardians, but I feel like it was probably even more important on this particular shoot with this particular character. And his chemistry with Rachel Brosnahan is just, it's stupid. Like, I'm like sitting there watching and I'm like, God, how are these people's spouses going to deal with how good these two are together? Like, it's significantly like crept into my brain on more than one occasion, just like watching them in interviews and stuff like that. I'm like, man, this is spicy. But they don't even like, there's no over the top anything. It's just they are great together in person and even more so in the show. They just, when they're together, I can't take my eyes off of either one of them. I truly enjoy their romance in a way that I don't think I have with those characters on screen before. And then Nicholas Hoult is just it's stupid that for some reason that man is like so good in everything he does, and he just pops up in multiple movies in a year. I'm like, dude, you're insane. And he's steals the show in like every movie he's in, and usually he's like a side character or something like that. Very rarely is he the leading man, but he's unstoppable. Your thoughts on the cast?
In terms of the three big roles, I don't think anyone could have done a better job. Like, I don't think you could have cast Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor better than this.
Yeah.
When I watched, David Cornsweet is a super talented actor. And if you watch his TV shows on Netflix, where he gets a little bit more room to spread his wings, he's super, super talented. and has like serious chops, like high level stuff. But you're always curious, well, how's that going to translate to Superman, right? Like how is this incredible actor going to bring that level of ability to this role? I never thought I was watching an actor play Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie, I felt like I was just watching Superman be Superman the whole time.
Yeah.
Whether it was as Clark Kent frustrated with Lois Lane or dorking about with his friends at the Daily Planet, or as Superman doing all of the various Superman things that he does. I believed him dramatically. I believed him physically. Like that man, something people don't know, and this is something we'll talk about more later in this part of this segment, but a lot of the stuff you see in that movie that you assume is CG is not CG. It's real photography.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it. And so a lot of him flying around and throwing punches and stuff is David Corenswet hanging from wires and doing acrobatics and throwing punches. And he just physically embodied Superman in a way that I thought was very special, to be honest with you. Rachel Brosnahan is an interesting one because she just gives Lois Lane energy for days. Like she just feel like when you see her, you're like, oh yeah, that's Lois Lane. Like
I think I told you that when we talked about the trailer, a couple of podcasts back. I was like, I didn't know who this actress was. I just knew the second I saw her, I was like, well, that's Lois Lane. There's no reason. It was just a woman walking in the Daily Planet. And I was like, well, that's Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's never been a more Lois Lane looking Lois Lane. That's the girl.
That's the one. That's ripped right from the page, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things about Lex Luthor is that sometimes he's portrayed in the post-crisis. Okay, pre-crisis on Infinite Earths, Lex Luthor was described as Clark Kent's age, and he was also a friend of Clark Kent's from his youth, but they were the same age, and he was a scientist. One of the things they did in the post-crisis, and it's because of Gene Hackman's portrayal in the Donner movies, I think, they made him an older guy who was like a business mogul rather than a young guy who's a super scientist.
Yeah.
I think Lex Luthor, the young guy who's a super scientist, is an infinitely more interesting character than the old real estate mogul who's, essentially just a dirty businessman. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that shit.
Yeah. So I like that as a point of characterization to begin with, but even just looking at like my favorite characterizations of Lex Luthor from the comic books, which takes me back to All-Star Superman and Superman Birthright. And I feel like he felt most like Superman Birthright Lex here. I thought Nicholas Hoult embodied Lex Luthor. I thought he was like, he was a excellent Lex Luthor. The best adaptation of Lex Luthor we've gotten in a theatrical film by far, and that's with all due respect in the world to Gene Hackman, who R.I.P., who I absolutely love, and even to Jesse Eisenberg, who he's a good actor, and I didn't think that his shortcomings as Lex Luthor were really his fault.
Yeah,
but Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is incredible and absolutely kills it. But I think the casting all the way down this movie was impressive. Like, I'm a huge fan of Nathan Fillion, as you know.
Yep, me too, bud.
I wasn't 100% certain about Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner.
Uh-huh.
Like, I wasn't 100% certain that character was going to work. And I thought he absolutely not only worked in this movie, but I thought he absolutely worked as Guy Gardner. Yes. You know what I mean? I thought I was a little bit unsure about Skylar Gisondo playing Jimmy Olsen.
Mm.
He killed it as Jimmy Olsen. You know what I mean? And I think you can really go all the way down this cast, and I felt that way kind of all through the movie, that this was just a stellar cast giving excellent performances all the way through.
I agree. And it just seemed like, there's this energy about the performances where it just seemed like everybody was happy to show up to work. It just seemed like everybody wanted to be a part of this movie, in the best way. The dog.
The dog.
Right?
The fucking dog, man. Okay, so one of the great things about the dog is great. He's adorable. We love him. We stand Crypto. We will fight anyone for Crypto. He also acts like a fucking dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't like obey all of his commands. He doesn't know exactly what Superman wants. Like he's not always, it's not just like, hey, Crypto, come do this thing for me. And then Crypto just does everything that he asks every time. And it's just like this perfect little companion. He's a dumbass. You know what I mean? The way that a dog is. Like if your dog had superpowers and you're like, well, this could be really helpful sometimes. It could be really not helpful other times. And the dog's just adorable. And yeah, I love the dog. He also, like, for me personally, he reminds me a lot of a dog I used to have. In his walk, his body language, and his mannerisms reminds me a lot of a dog I used to have. So that obviously I'm gonna love that dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came home that night and it was late and my son was sleeping in mine and my wife's bed and I didn't want to move him. So I just went to the guest bedroom and I told my dog to come with me and man, I love that guy. I love the shit out of him that night. He got so many belly rubs. I was just like, oh man, this is my little Crypto right here because it's very similar. Where I mean, Asher. Asher's
I sure do.
About as dumb and as good natured of a dog as you could ever hope for.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think he's quite to the degree that James Gunn says his dog is, because his dog was the basis for Crypto, and James Gunn has stated many times that it's the world's worst dog.
He's the worst dog in the world. Yeah.
Which I love. Like he says it with great affection, and I love that. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a little white dog. I have a little white dog, so just naturally, I was just seeing my little guy up there wearing a red cape, and I was very much of the mindset. I remember, hearing, and this is how much like the DCEU Man of Steel just like fried our brains, where I was like, why would you put Crypto in a Superman movie? Like that can't work, right? Why would we do that? And then lo and behold, not only does it work, but it's one of the highlights of the film,
Yeah.
Yeah, man, anytime that dog showed up, I had a big old smile on my face. What's another good that you have?
Well, to get back to the way that the movie was shot, I think that this movie is absolutely beautiful. It's funny. I'm seeing some people on the internet complain that it's got quote unquote wonky CGI. I think these kids have just watched, like, they've just only seen movies from like 2008 to today. So they just think like movies are just supposed to look one way. So then as soon as something doesn't look the way they're used to it looking, suddenly it's bad CGI or whatever. Because I've actually seen people clip parts of this movie that are real photography and say, oh, look at the bad CGI here. And I'm like, that's real photography. Like it's not CGI. The scene where Superman flies up into the air and he cannonballs into the kaiju.
Yeah.
That's real photography of David Cornsweet.
Yeah, it's
like
wild.
it's superimposed, but like that's not CG. That's David Cornsweet. Like most of the bits where you see him flying, that's David Cornsweet. It's real photography. And a lot of times it's superimposed on real, like when he's flying around, a lot of times it's real photography superimposed on real photography.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that really quick.
Please do.
One of the things I loved was the shot specifically of when he's jetting out of the Fortress of Solitude to go back to the fight, and he's flying around, and those close-up shots of his face, like I think the camera's probably like locked on his face, and you're like following his face as he's just like, they're just like blasting wind on his face, and he's just like rotating and stuff like that. Not only does it look cool, and it's weird because his face is being pushed back because he's going so fast, but there's this will go, we'll bring this up again and again and again, and this is kind of the point of not only the movie but probably this podcast. There's a smile on his face. There's a glee that he has, even after he just got his butt whipped. He's just flying back to the fight, and he's got a little smile on his face, and I love that. And I love, like you said, that David Cornsweet is doing all this. He said in an interview that he went to Juilliard, and that the professor that he was a student under had them do like hours of like physical training and different exercises and mobility things, and he said that 100% translated into him being able to physically be able to do the stunts, to hang on the wires, to hold his body in those positions as long as he did for this movie. So that's like one of those things where um uh it's kind of meant to be almost.
Mhm. Yeah.
But sorry,
No, it's okay.
stole your thunder there.
No. Just it's certainly not a role that everyone could have done physically, right? Like, they just
Yes.
could not have. The scene where the engineer first starts to grab a hold of Clark with her nanites when they're fighting in the baseball field,
Yeah.
and he rolls over and he slams her into the ground, and he hits the Ultraman, and he slams her into the ground, and he hits Ultraman.
Yeah.
That's not all. That's mostly practical. Like, they
That's
put
wild.
David Corn Sweat in a machine that pinched his waist, and they spun him, and he put his arms out, and he made a slamming thing over and over and over again as they spun him around the field.
That's crazy.
It's real. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's real photography. So, like, I would say one of the things coming into this movie that I doubted was whether or not James Gunn had the visual chops to get this to work perfectly visually as a Superman movie. Like, can this be a 2025 Superman movie? Can this visually take this part of the medium forward in 2025? And I would say that it's a resounding yes. I mean, what you just said about the scene where he's flying back from the Fortress of Solitude, I think that's like the best flight I've ever seen in film, period.
I agree.
It's the best flight I've ever seen in a movie ever. And like that was not on my bingo card coming into this movie. As excited as I was, I did not see it being visually incredible in that way. The sets are all real. Like, they built a Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
They built Superman robots. They built functioning Superman robots. Like, the scenes where the robots are talking to him, that's practical. That's real. Those are real fucking robots talking to Superman. You don't see that kind of effort these days, and Marvel Studios, who is trying to be better, and there a lot of Fantastic Four is practical and shot on film and done with miniatures, but Marvel Studios for the last 10 years has done every goddamn thing in front of a golf ball.
Yeah.
Like, you would have to be careful the way you wrote a Marvel movie, because if you wrote a character interacting with the world around them, you'd have to take that part out of the script, because they can't interact with the scenery because it's not real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't just like reach over and pick up a rock next to you, because there is no rock next to you. That's the way those movies have been shot for a while, right? Yeah. That's not here. None of that's here. Like, the Fortress of Solitude is shot on a real set where they built all that shit. Those robots are real robots. When we're in the streets, when we're in the baseball field, when we're in the Arctic Circle, when we're in Lex's office, we're in real places the entire time.
Yeah.
And I love that about this movie. I think it visually looks amazing in that way. I think the costuming, the effort put into the costuming was excellent. Like, I think Superman looks badass. I think Ultraman looks badass.
I think, this is weird, particularly, because he's got the underoos on, but I honestly think this is probably my favorite version of the costume on film. Like, I think it looks so fucking good.
Yeah, same. Oh, one more bit of realism. Sorry, I want to throw this one there. No. When the engineer at the beginning of the movie, she sees the Fortress of Solitude sinking back into the earth?
Yeah.
And she lets out that little Spanish cuss word, and then she blasts her jets, and she raises up and falls down. Practical. They picked her ass up on a crane and had her go whoop, woof. And then they CGI'd in, obviously, the jetpack, but they physically lifted her up and dropped her. Practical. No one would have done that practical. Everyone would have been like, this will be much easier to CG. And James Gunn was like, nah, I want it to look good. I love the effort in the way they shot this movie. They shot this movie with real care for the way that it looked.
I agree. And that kind of takes me to, we're kind of in my next thing, which is the spectacle. Like, it was very apparent to me from the trailers that this was just going to be a Superman movie that we hadn't seen before. It was apparent from the very first picture we got of David Cornsweet in the suit, and this like kind of like bulbous thing like lighting up the sky in the background, which so many people talk shit about. And God, I wonder how much fun James Gunn was having with that, particularly with the way that scene specifically plays out. Superman's just like, it's just like a whatever teleporting thing.
It's an interdimensional imp. They got it.
They got it. Like
as he says, they got it. Guy Gardner is creating a giant baseball bat and going boom,
swinging it. I love that. Oh man, I love it. But the spectacle of this, the set pieces are great. It's probably the most comic booky movie I've ever seen in terms of just like everything feels big, everything feels colorful, everything feels lively, and it doesn't feel forced like it does in a Marvel movie. Like what you're saying about it being real locations and practical sets. And yes, there's a giant kaiju walking around, but it works because like I know that happens in Superman, stories. And it's okay because we established early on that there are robots and there's a flying dog, like all of that, like the idea that these fantastical things can happen. We established all this stuff early on. So it makes when even more fantastical stuff happens later on in the film, you can believe it that, Lex Luthor has these little portals that take him to other dimensions and stuff like that. Right. When it was happening, I was like, what the fuck's going on here? What is going on? And then when you kind of realize, you're like, okay.
Right.
Lex Luthor's a mastermind.
Lex has got a plug universe
out.
Yeah.
But man, I just like the little kid in me is just kind of sitting back in awe of how beautiful and fun this movie was to watch. And I very much like to think that when James Gunn was putting this film together, it was, let's Tom Cruise this shit and make people want to go to the movies,
Right. Absolutely.
What else you got for me?
Well, okay, so you mentioned the spectacle. I think that not only was the spectacle itself in this movie fantastic, but I think that the spectacle in this movie was written and designed in a way that is more true to the comic book character than we've ever seen before. So when we talk about the writing in a movie, we're usually talking about like story structure, character decisions, arcs, things of that nature, right? But like when you design a fight scene to have character moments, that's writing, right? Having Superman stop the kaiju from stepping on a dog and refusing to move until he got the dog clear, right? Yeah. That's Superman in a way we've never seen anyone get Superman right.
Yeah.
When the kaiju smashes its foot down and the little girl is terrified because Superman just got crushed, and then she sees the ground moving, and then Superman pops out and she throws her hands up in the air because Superman is okay. That's brilliant Superman writing in a way we've never seen it done before. When we see him save the squirrel.
Yeah, dude, I loved that. I loved that.
When we see him grab the lady and fly her away off to a roof and tell her to take deep breaths, it's going to be okay. And he takes just 1 second before he flies back into the fray to shoot her the most heartwarming smile you've ever seen in your goddamn life, because he wants her to know that it's okay because Superman's here. That is writing Superman in a way that no one has ever been able to do it before. When the kaiju, and this is all just the kaiju scene we're talking about here. I'm not even talking about the whole movie. When the kaiju blasts fire at that building and Superman gets in the way and he takes as much of it as he can, and then before re-engaging the kaiju, he turns around to look into the office building and says, "Is everybody okay?" And the lady nods, and Superman smiles because he's genuinely relieved that everyone's okay. And then he immediately turns around and distracts it and raises its eye line above the building where it can't hurt anyone anymore. That is getting Superman right in a way that nothing ever has before. This movie fucking killed that aspect of this. It obliterated that. It gave people... Those sequences remind me of the Superman, the animated series from the 90s. They remind me of my favorite Superman comics. And yeah, he kind of had that going all over this movie. And I thought that shit was amazing. Dude, the scene where the building is falling and out of nowhere, Clark just shows up, boom, and stops the building. And up to this point, we've been with this lady whose car won't start. And then she barely gets her car started and she drives through and the building collapses. And she just turns back and we see Superman rise out of the...
That's the shot of the movie, pal.
It's incredible.
That's the fucking incredible
shot. And you see Superman staring at her and you can tell he's just grateful he was able to save someone's life. Like he's just like, man, that was close. I'm sure glad I pulled that off. And he's like having that moment to himself before he turns and addresses the actual threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That stuff was so good to me. And we don't get shit like that in really like anything. Like nobody really does that.
Yeah.
In superhero movies, period, it feels like.
Yeah. I have a little bit more on that in a minute because I think that's, again, what I said before, that kind of the whole point of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I have one other little thing before I get to that. By little thing, I mean like one of my favorite parts of this movie. I remember when I saw the trailer and I told you this, I was like, what is this music that they're doing? It's familiar, but I don't know what it is. It's cool, but I don't know what it is. And then I was like, oh, duh.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Superman theme.
Right.
And part of me was like, is that what I want? Is that like, I really, one of the things I really enjoy about Man of Steel is I love that theme. I think the Man of Steel theme is kick ass. Mm-hmm. Hans Zimmer did a great job, as he always does. And I was like, that was one of my least favorite parts of Justice League, was that Joss Whedon brought in, God bless him, Danny Elfman to do the score, and we get reiterations of the original Batman theme and the original Superman theme, which mm-hmm. I do not think fits those movies. Mm-hmm. None of those characters have earned those themes as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I feel that.
So my thought was, do I want them to redo the theme, because that Justice League had left a bad taste in my mouth when they did that, and does it deserve something new and different? And then the more I sat with it and the more trailers I watched, the more I was like, it's the Superman theme. There's a reason that Richard Donner always said in interviews that when the dun da da da, the dun da 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 happens, he always he swore that he could hear the music saying Superman.
Yeah.
And I think it's very true, and the score is without a doubt one of my favorite parts of this movie. I love what they were able to do with John Williams' score and how they were able to transform it and give it a new life of its own in this movie, kind of giving it... I'm not a musical guy, so I can't really describe it that well, but just different versions of the song with different instruments and different vocalizations in ways that made it the Superman theme, but also different than what we're used to, and playing it soft and then playing it loud and then playing it with the electric guitar, which is what we got in the teaser trailer, and that mm-hmm. shit gets me pumped every time I hear it.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought It was John Murphy was one, and then there was another gentleman that was that worked on it too. Forgive me here for 2 seconds, because I want to make
No, yeah,
sure
we should credit him properly.
I get that man his credit. But while I'm doing that, what did you think of the score, sir?
I thought the score was beautiful. I thought it was excellent. One of my favorite things about the movie. And I would even say, like, we talked about how it's the Richard Donner score, but different. I mean, I think in some places they really changed it so much that it's its own thing.
Yes.
That it's its own thing, inspired by John Williams' score.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think John Williams is the greatest of all time. I think if you're going to be inspired by somebody, you might as well be inspired by the greatest of all time.
Indeed.
And I think that it's incredible in this movie. I think there are times where you need the score to capture a moment in a certain way, where this movie just blows it the fuck out of the water and is just absolutely excellent in that way. I love the score in this movie.
John Murphy and David Fleming.
David Fleming. Thank you, Mr. Fleming. I would also say, with regards to the soundtrack, that when I found out James Gunn was doing this movie, I had faith that it was going to be good. I was like, he's a good writer. He understands story and character. He understands Superman. He's a fan. It's going to be good. But I had a couple of concerns, reservations. And one was, I don't think you can do Superman as a needle drop movie.
Yeah.
With just like a soundtrack playing all the way through the movie, right?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that he only has 2 needle drops in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both perfect. There's a word for it when the music is actually taking place in the story proper.
Diegetic.
It's not the sound. What's that?
Diegetic.
Okay. I know in the first instance it's diegetic, you said?
Yeah.
In the first instance, it's that. It's playing on the radio.
Terrific scene, is that what
the Mr. Terrific scene.
Yeah.
It's playing on the radio. And so I liked that. And then I think you could argue that it's even that in the final scene, that's Clark listening to music.
I agree.
So I thought the music in this movie was perfect. And I thought James Gunn's restraint in his needle drop tendencies to say, no, you know what? This is a score movie. I'm going to get the score right. And that's how we're going to do this one. I'm really glad he did that. I think that was the right thing to do.
I agree. I thought, both those specific uses. I think there's 1 or 2 other songs in the movie, but I think they're very much kind of like more or less like background things. But those 2 songs specifically, the Mr. Terrific scene is, well, terrific. And Christian leaned over to me during that. He's like, "Oh, that feels pretty James Gunn." I was like, "Yeah, what is it? What's his name in Guardians?"
It's got some Yondu to it.
Yeah, Yondu. Yeah. That whole sequence, very much in the same vein, but both just equally cool. And I love that little quip of, "Oh, it's just the smart one."
I didn't catch that the first time.
Yeah,
I watched this movie twice. Second time I watched it, I heard the Raptor say, "He's just the smart one," and I was like, "That's brilliant. Yeah. That's such a perfect line before that scene takes place."
Yeah, I love that.
Chef's kiss. Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific in this movie is excellent.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Really the whole Justice Gang, and I love that ongoing thing. And then Metamorpho trying to get in, and then Guy Gardner being like, "Nah, man, I don't think you're ready," and then Justice Gang.
That's a cool name.
You're in.
Yep.
I liked it a lot. On the subject of Metamorpho, this isn't in my notes, but I feel like I should take it and run with it, because this is something that I really did like about the movie, was how kryptonite works. Like, kryptonite is fucking scary in this.
Yeah.
In ways that it's never been scary in other interpretations of Superman. Like, the effects it has on him are kind of terrifying.
Kind of grotesque, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Like, what actual radiation poisoning would do to somebody. Yeah, I thought that was pretty hardcore. Any other good stuff that you really want to hammer home before I kind of wrap it up with the big one?
Yeah, I would say let's see. I went over Eddie Gathegi. I thought he was really, really great. One of the other things I was worried about with this movie is that James Gunn really likes to have a ton of humor in his movies. He likes to be very funny. And the thing is, I think his movies are funny. Like, I think the Guardians movies are funny. I think the Suicide Squad is funny. But I remember thinking like I kind of knew he would know this. I knew that he had to tone that down a little bit for Superman. It can't be the same tone as Peacemaker or the Suicide Squad, right? It's gonna have to have a slightly different tone. And the humor you put in there is going to have to fit the movie. It's going to have to fit the story. And the thing that I kept going back to in my head was Sam Raimi and Spider-Man, where Sam Raimi is an absolute goofball and he's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
And so when he did Spider-Man, he's a big fan of Spider-Man also. He had to do a movie that was both very reverent of Spider-Man, very reverent of the source material, and gets the tone of Spider-Man right, while still being a Sam Raimi film, right?
Yeah.
And I think that he really nailed that with Spider-Man. I was thinking that's exactly what James Gunn had to do here. He had to be reverent to Superman and have a movie that does feel like Superman and gets that Superman tone, but has all of the good things that makes James Gunn, and has humor that works within the context of the tone of the movie. And I really thought he nailed that. I thought there was a little bit that could have been dialed down, but overall, I really felt like the humor, I felt like most of the jokes landed, and I felt like they made sense in the flow of the story. It didn't feel like he was just throwing wacky gags into a story. It felt like very character-based humor.
Yeah, I watched a review of someone who was fairly critical of the film, and that was one of their remarks. They're like, "Yeah, James Gunn, he just doesn't know when to tone down the comedy." And I was like, I honestly feel like, and I was trying to have my critical hat on when I was watching this and kind of agreeing with certain things, and um but that was when I disagreed with. I was like, I feel like very much what you said, all the jokes and everything very much felt like they were in keeping with the characters in the moment. And granted, we do need to take into account that James Gunn and the Guardians of the Galaxy really did set the precedent for the tone of the Marvel movies moving forward after that, and a lot more of their jokey humor. But I feel like I didn't have too many moments in Superman where emotional beats were ruined by comedy. So I didn't
think any of the emotional beats were ruined by comedy. I didn't see that happen in the movie.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. The person that was criticizing this said that specifically, and I didn't feel that at all. There's one moment that I thought was cut a little short, that I would have personally let breathe just a little bit longer, but it's cut short by Superman's call to action rather than a joke. I think he nailed it. And I think he nailed the overall message of the movie, which is Superman's goodness. And you've said it, you've been saying it, and we've been dancing around it too, that it's just, that's the point of this movie. Oddly enough, it seems to have angered a good chunk of people. And I only found out about this, I found out about this a couple of days after seeing the movie, that there is, people said it was political and woke, and I personally, I was like, wow, I didn't get that at all. I was watching a movie about Superman being nice to people and being a symbol of goodness and hope. And I'm sorry, man, but if you feel that the movie is too woke or too political, I think that's on you, man. I think that's a personal thing. If you feel attacked, then you should probably be looking at yourself saying why, like, because if you got a problem with people being kind and being good and loving everybody, that's the point of this whole thing, man. Not just the movie, but of life. Is
Right.
That's the
Right.
number one thing.
That's the point of life.
Both my wife and I tell my son that what's the number one rule? You be kind to people. Always be kind. There's not enough kindness in this world, and a little bit more can just make a mountain of difference. And that fucking line that just stuck out to me. Maybe that's the real punk rock. Like that's the shit. That line right there, that's the whole movie for me. Is
Absolutely.
that bit that he has with Lois. And I mean, please take it and run with it.
You know what's funny is I actually got that line spoiled for me. And I thought it sounded so fucking corny until I saw it in the context of the movie. And I was just like,
yeah.
Cinema. Perfect. Yeah. It completely encapsulates Clark Kent. And you also have to keep in mind that this is a Clark Kent who's 30 years old in 2025, right? So like he would be a punk rock kid. He would have some of that in his nature. That's something he might say, right?
Yeah.
And no, absolutely. Like this movie is about goodness, and not like abstract goodness, real goodness, being good to other people, caring about other people, helping other people no matter what. Like choosing to care about other human beings, choosing to care about other life forms that aren't just human beings. Period. That's what it's about. It's about goodness. It's about kindness. And that's what Superman's about. And that's why he's aspirational. And I absolutely think they fucking nailed that. They nailed the messaging of this movie. You said exactly what I was thinking. If you feel attacked by this movie, it's because you need to look in the mirror and start working on yourself. If you felt attacked by this, if you feel attacked by fucking Superman, you have a problem that you need to work on. And that's just fucking facts. Tying into that, ultimately, I would say I really love the character arc that Superman has in this movie, because, and this is actually like a three-pronged things that I liked. The character arc he has in this movie is like, you know how in writing it's like the character has external wants and then internal needs?
Yeah.
I feel like they're not so different, but they're a little bit different, because he goes from wanting to carry on his parents' legacy, his biological parents' legacy, as Superman, as the guy who is the man, right? This loved superhero who is like living up to his birthright and doing what he was put here to do. And he wants to be this like messianistic figure. And then what he realizes by the end of the movie, what he needs to do is to be that hero because he chooses to be.
Yeah.
It is an identity that he chose. It's not something that was bestowed upon him. It's not something that was bequeathed to him.
Yeah.
It is who he has decided to be with his life. And that is actually a fucking beautiful message. That you are bigger than the circumstances of your birth, and you don't have to be who anyone tells you have to be. You can choose to be better than whatever people have labeled you or told you to be. And I mean, I think that's the big point, and I agree with you. And I think that's sort of the beautiful part of this movie. I think that the Kents are incredible in this movie at bringing that point home. Mm-hmm. You got these two lesser known actors. Obviously, you and I know who Pruitt was. It Pruitt Taylor Vince?
Yeah, I've always just thought of him as the guy from Identity.
Right. Yes. Yeah, same. But we know him, obviously. You and I know him because we're movie buffs. But he's a relatively unknown character actor, and that pretty unknown who plays his mom. They fucking killed it, and they made me believe that they were the ones that taught this space alien who was sent here to take over Earth to be a good person.
That was actually one of my favorite parts. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Costner as Jonathan Kent. I think particularly his portrayal and his dilemma of, what Clark should be and how Clark should keep his secret. I think he gives a great performance in a clumsily handled character script wise, but like having these people that feel like they're from Kansas in ways that like no other character has felt that way. Like Ma and Pa Kent and Superman 78 don't necessarily feel like they're from Kansas, nor do Annette O'Toole and I do believe it's John Schneider who play Jonathan and Martha in Smallville. You know, Kevin Costner and oh
Diane
gosh,
Lane.
Diane Lane, like those people are not
Diane Lane is like
farmers.
Diane Lane's like the most beautiful woman who ever lived, and we're supposed to believe she's a Kansas farmer.
Yeah, like nah, dog,
No,
it's not
no.
happening. But
Yeah.
I see Ma and Pa Kent in this version of Superman. I'm like, those are humble farmers. Those are people of good stock that don't know everything, but try to be good. And there's a shot that you see in the trailer, and you see it at the end when he's looking at all the images and everything of Clark Kent as a little boy running into Pa Kent's arms, and the joy that is on both of their faces. Like I'm like, I don't even know how you act that little boy looks like he's just ecstatic to see his daddy, and Pa Kent is just, couldn't be happier to be taking care of this little like alien boy. Like it's beautiful, the relationship that they have. And that is my one little gripe with timing stuff is they have that great scene where they're sitting on the bench, Jonathan and Clark, and they're talking, and Jonathan is telling him about his choices and what it means to be a good person, and he doesn't have to follow anybody else's path for him. And it's a great scene, and it's just, if it had just been allowed to breathe just a little bit longer, with maybe just the two of them sitting there in silence, like I was really feeling that scene. And then I think Martha comes out to tell him that something's on the TV or whatever. And it's just, if it had just been allowed to breathe just a hint longer, because I just love those emotional scenes. I think they're great, particularly that scene that I feel is so integral to the film. But I think it's kick-ass across the board. I really do. Like they hammer home the message again and again and again. And it was said by James Gunn and David Cornsweet, and you've said it, that there's just a glee that Superman has in getting to help people and to be good, that other characters just simply do not have, and could probably never have. And they just, man, do they knock it out of the park with this.
Absolutely. I have one final point here.
Yeah.
This movie did something that I thought was really impressive that you don't get in a lot of Superman movies. A lot of Superman movies have to inject like kryptonite or like a weird plot point in order to put Superman on the back foot.
Yeah.
In this movie, Superman is on the back foot. He is the underdog. He is fighting from a deficit the entire movie. When the movie opens up, he just got his ass beat by the Hammer of Bravia. Yeah. And then we see him fly back out to rematch the Hammer of Bravia, and it continues kicking the shit out of him. We see that Lex Luthor has designed this scenario. He's studied him. He's built this thing to beat his ass, right? And we see Superman get the shit kicked out of him. Then we find out that Lex Luthor has a being called Ultraman that he says is the most powerful being on planet Earth. And we've already seen it beat up Superman. So we already know he has a soldier that can beat up Superman. We know he has another dangerous metahuman paired with that soldier. And we know he has an army of little mini Iron Mans. So as soon as he describes World Watch to us, we see World Watch and we're like, oh, they could beat Superman. Like that thing's already kicked Superman's ass, and it's got a lot of backup. And also, Lex Luthor seems smarter than anybody. And like he's got plans and contingencies and he knows what to do here. So I feel like right from jump, Superman's the underdog.
Yeah.
In a way that you never see. And I feel like the information that's revealed to him by Lex Luthor that gives him that crisis of faith, that shakes him to his core and gives him an internal crisis like we've never seen in a Superman movie, at least not in a way that's this well earned, without going into details on other movies, but it gives him a very like real crisis of faith. So he's having this internal conflict while he is outgunned by the external conflict.
Yeah.
And I think it makes the ending of the movie, when he overcomes that external conflict physically and he overcomes that internal conflict morally, that much more satisfying. In a way that you don't always get that. It's not always that satisfying and that well set up and that well earned at the end in superhero movies or movies.
I agree. No, that is again something that was really bold, is that we just start the movie with Superman getting his butt whipped.
Mm-hmm.
But that's again one of the cool things about the movie and the characterization of Superman in this, is that he's down a lot of the movie, but he's never out. He's never
right.
He's always got a smile on his face, and I fucking love that. Well, now that we've gushed over this movie for like an hour, I guess.
Sorry.
At least one of us should try and maybe bring to the forefront one or two gripes that we have with the flick. In our next section, the shit. Do you even have anything written down, or am I just flying solo and we're gonna duke it out?
We're
I've been
probably
concerned
gonna duke it
about
out.
this. I've been very concerned about this. I know our friendship's on the line right now.
Well, look, we're probably going to duke it out, but I've got gripes. I will admit most of them are creative decisions.
Yeah.
That I think ultimately work. So it's hard to be mad about those.
Yeah.
But to start with real actual gripes that aren't creative decisions, it's just things I thought could have been better. I do think that the movie needed more room to breathe.
Yeah.
I don't think stuff got stepped on by humor, but I think stuff got stepped on by just like moving along.
Yeah.
And like my one big example of that is a scene that, and I've seen the movie twice now, and I'll admit upon second viewing, I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was the first time, but the scene where he's trapped in the pocket dimension with Metamorpho, with Rex, the Element Man, as they call him in the movie, I think that scene really could have used 3 minutes after the civilian was killed.
Yeah.
It could have really used 3 minutes of a beaten Superman reasoning with a emotionally defeated Metamorpho.
Yeah.
That like, hey man, Lex ain't gonna let you go. He ain't gonna let me go. He ain't gonna let your son go. And he's gonna kill my dog.
Yeah.
And for Superman to inspire Metamorpho to let him go. Now, if James Gunn were on this podcast with us, I think he'd say, fuck you, kid. I had Superman plant that in his mind. Like, hey, I can save your son if you help me. And then I had Lex do something that affected Metamorpho, and that led to the moment that he saved him. So it's earned. I would agree with that in the sense that I don't think it's totally unearned, but I just think that moment could have had more impact if we had just gotten like 3 more minutes of dialogue.
Yeah.
To let it sink in how Rex was feeling about the guy being killed, to let it sink in like, oh man, they've got my son and they're not going to let him go. They're not going to let me go. They're not going to let this poor guy go. They're going to kill his dog. Yeah. And, Superman being like, you can choose to be a hero, Rex. Like, you can choose to save us both. I think that would have been more impactful in that scene if they had done that specifically.
What you said about there being room to breathe, that scene, the scene that I mentioned, it's not necessarily by things being stepped on by comedic moments, but it is just we're moving along,
He's moving so fast.
and that's I do think that that kind of leads into one of my gripes with the film. I even feel like gripe is a little bit strong of a word. It's just there's a lot of characters and a lot of plot. And I really admire James Gunn saying fuck it and just thrusting us into this world. Just feels a little too messy and chaotic for me at times. Like there are so many characters. The fact that like I was on IMDb and the cast list is 99 plus, it actually says 99 plus for the cast list. I think it's very telling. Granted, those are not all, like
Significant roles.
exactly, but we do have a lot of significant roles. We have Superman, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, all of Lex's staff, which is a lot. We have Lex's, Ultraman. We have the engineer. We have Eve Teschmacher. We have all of his like little underlings. We have all the Daily Planet. We have Jimmy Olsen. We have Perry White. We have
Cat Grant, Steve Lombard, Ron Troop.
Yeah.
The Justice Gang.
The Justice Gang. We have Metamorpho. We have his kid. And it's again, like I think that was a conscious decision to be like, hey, this is just the world and we're in it. I could have done with a little bit more shaping, for lack of a better word. Again, by no means is this like a like deal breaker for me. It just I think it would have lent itself to maybe a little bit more of a healthier pace had there been a little less stuff going on. But again, I'm very much of two minds of it because I like him just throwing caution to the wind and putting us in this comic book world. But do you feel any similarities to that? Do you feel like there's a lot of characters and a lot going on?
I mean, I think if you actually look at how many characters there are with real speaking roles, it's probably about average for a movie of this size.
Yeah.
Like it's got like a quarter of the amount of characters as Oppenheimer, for example.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean? So I don't actually think there's that many characters. I think that some of them have a little bit more to do than maybe we were expecting. Like maybe we didn't think that Jimmy Olsen and Eve Teschmacher would be really important characters to the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
And then they ended up being that. So I think maybe it's a little bit more that those characters were a little more important than we thought. And I have to say, I don't think I wanted any characters or subplots cut, but I do, in my imagination, if I could imagine sort of quote unquote fixing this movie that I don't think needs to be fixed, but if I could imagine, taking a magical sponge to it and editing it, I would have loved an extra 10 or 15 minutes of just character moments.
Yeah.
Particularly with Clark and Lois and Lex, but some character moments with the Justice Gang, some character moments at the Daily Planet, some character moments with the Kents. Like, I mean, look, in my own personal, like, I would have loved it if this movie was just 30 minutes longer and we had, 23 minutes more character development and another 7-minute badass action scene. Like I would have loved that. Yeah. But I also understand why those movies are not as in demand for general audiences as they are for sickos like us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. I mean, like I always hear like complaints about like long movies, and I'm like, dude, if the movie's good, give me a 3-hour movie. Like I fucking love the Batman, dude. I fucking love that movie so much.
Dude, I never feel the runtime of that movie ever. Every time I watch that movie, I'm just happy the whole way through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess what I would say is I agree with wanting a little bit more space in the film. I think that's a really fair criticism. I personally, though, I liked all the characters. I liked all the subplots. I thought they were all pretty good.
Yeah, I think probably what you're saying is right, because again, that's probably why I'm of two minds of it. It's not necessarily that I wanted less. I probably just wanted more runtime, more time for, like you said, to let stuff breathe. And I think that's
Absolutely.
probably the best way to put it. I have like one or two critiques, like CG critiques. One of them's the main one that I have is funky because I think it's supposed to look this way. Like the big one for me was the particle pool, like that they go into in
Oh,
the
okay.
where I think it's
Interesting.
supposed to look pixelated. I'm
Yes, it is.
almost positive it is.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
uh, it's so, again, that's where it's like a weird critique for me. I'm like, I just would have personally preferred a design of something that didn't look like that. That's kind of how I would have gone about it, because when I'm watching it, I'm going, well, that looks like a pixelated thing on, and then Superman's like in it, so it looks like he's pixelated at points. So that was a thing for me that, I don't want to be like that guy, but I did find myself thinking about it while I was watching the
Interesting.
movie
Okay.
rather than watching the movie.
Okay.
And again, it's not a super duper big thing. Again, like I said, it. There's no way this movie gets to where it is and looks as good as it does, and that looks that bad unless like it's supposed to look like that,
Right. Mhm.
But then, there's we have things like The Flash, which has egregious
Yeah,
CGI.
really
So,
bad CG in the movie. Yeah,
but again, that's a very nothing thing. I think really I have like one big one, and this is more me personally rather
Mhm.
um than this is my expectation rather than what the film is giving me, right? So
Yeah.
I don't really like Lex pouting at the end, pouting for lack of a better word. I know he just got the shit kicked out of him by a super canine, but in my mind, Lex Luthor always has a chip on his shoulder, even when he's been beat. I see him as so intelligent, so mentally tough, that even if he were to be bested by Superman, Batman, or whoever, he would certainly be upset, but he would almost be amused,
Mhm.
like that someone got the better of him. Um, I picture my Lex Luthor smiling even in the face of defeat, because his wheels are always turning and he's already considering his next move.
Mhm.
Like, I think a very good example of this, and almost certainly my personal favorite screen portrayal of Lex Luthor, would be Michael Rosenbaum
Oh yeah.
in Smallville,
Mhm.
who like consistently loses
Mhm.
throughout the series in many different facets, whether it's Superman, other villains, or his dad getting
Mhm.
the better of him. But always has that, like, an ace up his sleeve, always, maintains his composure even in the face of defeat. Um, and this is by no means to take away from Nick Holt, who obviously we already discussed delivers uh, a stellar performance and is without doubt one of the most versatile actors working today. I think it is probably a little bit more of an issue with the script, but again, this is all my personal feeling. Like you said, this is taking specifically from certain comics, and that could be
Mhm.
more in line with that interpretation of Lex. Again, this is I think 75% of the Lex Luthor that I got is like what I wanted, I would say. That's kind of my only big gripe that I have with this, that I was like, ah,
Mhm.
man, I just feel like Lex would just, he'd be pissed, but he'd still be like, all right, well, we're gonna figure it out one way or another. I'm gonna kill this guy,
Mhm.
And I do like that was the motivation. Like, I love that. I always hated the,
Yeah, I'm gonna own real estate in
yeah,
Eastern California, but it'll be beachfront property.
nonsense. I hate
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. It's fucking stupid.
Like, I love that the motivation wasn't
Uh,
even like they kind of they they tease you with it too. They
Yeah.
tease you with
The
it
idea that
where
it was money
he's
or
getting a
power.
piece of that country or whatever. And then
Jahanpur,
he's
yeah.
like, no, man, I did all that just so I could kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking loved that. I thought that was bitchin'.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much that's all I got for bad stuff. Do you have any other critiques or anything else that you need to
I'd love to bounce off of what you just said, because I actually
Sure.
really, really love Smallville, and I really love Superman the animated series. And I definitely like that version of Lex that's kind of James Bondy. He's kind of like unflappable.
Yeah.
But in most of the more prominent comic books, Lex is going all the way back to like the Silver Age and the Golden Age. Lex is an emotional person, and
Yeah.
he flips out and he throws tantrums. It's something that he does.
All right. See, that's
And
again, that's me being a novice in that area. So
I mean, you're less of a novice than some people. You've actually read some comics and you have a little bit of knowledge of that stuff. But yeah, he is an emotional guy who flips out, and I think it's important to note that this is his first time ever being beaten, and I don't think he considered the possibility that he could be beaten.
yeah.
I think that he's a billionaire. He's the smartest man in the world, and he did not think Superman could possibly prevail in this situation. So it was like, in his mind, he was about to win the Super Bowl, and instead he was going to prison. And it just shook him so badly. That said, I do think that this Lex still has, like, I think this Lex was sitting in the backseat of that car on his way to prison thinking like, all right, well, now I got to escape from prison. I got to regain my empire. I got to kill Superman. I got to convince everyone that this was bullshit. Like, I don't think he stopped scheming. I don't think he was beaten. And I think that the emotionality of Lex Luthor at the end of the movie is actually really good. Like the scene where he's like, my envy is the hope of mankind because it will give me the motive, it will give me the power I need to kill you. He's just 1A. Like, I thought that scene was awesome. So I think the emotionality of Lex Luthor swings both ways. You know what I mean? I think he can get a little bit pouty, but I also think that when he's passionately Lex Luthor, it's very engaging. When he's saying they chose him, let them, like, I think that stuff's good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I like that. I did. I was laughing though when the thing's coming toward the building. I was like, "What's the building gonna do? It's gonna split in half, and they're gonna be fine." Lex doesn't seem worried, and then he's like, "All right, do it." And then the thing just drops, and it's like a fucking spaceship. I was like, Lex, in what world would you think that you needed this? Like, what?
Clearly, this one.
I guess so.
He's got pocket universes, Johnny.
I guess so. I was just like, oh man, it's kind of like when Harry finds the gun in the mantle in Spider-Man. He's just like, what have you done? Where's the gun? What have you done? Ah, there's one right here. Of course, there's the one right here. Oh, good shit. All
Hey
right,
man, rich people have guns. What's up?
Well, that's a terrifying scene where Harry tries to kill Spider-Man for Spider-Man, killing the Green Goblin, with that terrifying scene in mind, we're off to our next segment, Truly Terrifying Tidbits. All right, well, this is not a horror movie, so there's no reason to even bother considering that. Do you have a scariest scene, however? Do you have anything, if you were in that scene, would you be scared, or do you have anything that you found disturbing at all in this movie?
Sure. I think that if you were involved in a kaiju attack or a black hole eating a city, you'd probably be pretty afraid.
Indeed.
I sure would be. But I would say, obviously the scene where the falafel man gets shot is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's pretty painful to watch. And then when the engineer is butchering his robots and suffocating his dog, I'd say that's some rough moments here.
I think
it's a family movie,
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the scariest scene is definitely the kryptonite. Just seeing kryptonite portrayed in that way and how it can have like a physical effect rather an effect on Superman's physicality.
Yeah.
I found that to be fairly disturbing and really stuck out to me, and I really thought that was cool. So, whoo, that's all we got for that. On to the next one. In this section, we discuss the film's rewatchability, some of our favorite moments from the flick, and its overall entertainment value. So, Kalen, if you were going to try and get someone to watch Superman 2025 and you had one scene to do so, you were able to put your person in front of a computer or a cell phone and show this person a scene on YouTube, what would that scene be?
You know that I'm always really, really bad at this. I really believe that I am. But I think the opening of the kaiju scene where he saves the dog, gets stepped on, bursts out of the ground, and flies around, punches the kaiju in the face, and then flies around behind it and catches it before it can hit a building. I think that's probably my
That's
selling
what you're
point.
showing.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that. Dude, I gotta go with the opening of the movie. I think
Yeah.
that little text crawl and then
Mhm.
just seeing Superman boom into the ice, all
Mhm.
bloodied and beaten, like that's your hook right there, man. Like he just got his ass kicked and this is the most powerful being in the world. What do you do next?
Right.
Do you have a favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scenes are when he's flying up out of the black hole crevice and the raptors attack him. Like, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Flies up, spins around, knocks them all off of him. We zoom in nice and tight to the S to remind everyone that this is a motherfucking Superman movie. The score hits the perfect fucking crescendo, and he spins around and fucking laser blasts everybody. That's a pretty fucking epic climax to the physical confrontation. But also, man, I love the last shot. I love the last shot when he's laying there and they say, "Would you like us to put on the footage of your parents?" And he says, "Yes." And it's Ma and Pa Kent, and they start playing Iggy fucking Pop. I'm a punk rocker. Chef's kiss. Love it.
I love the interview scene. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think just seeing the two of them go at it, like I've loved seeing it in the trailers and then just seeing the whole thing play out to fruition was great. That was the scene that they auditioned with. I think there
Mm-hmm.
were some tweaks here and there in the script, but that was more or less what they auditioned with. And I think that's such a great scene between the two of them, getting to see Superman be frustrated by worldly politics as opposed to just I was doing right. I was doing good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why does it have to be political, you know?
Yeah, why is that so complicated for you people?
Yeah.
Why is
Um
saving a bunch of children political for you people? Yeah.
and then the scene where the guitar kicks in and Clark is watching the TV and he
Oh
sees the
man.
flag go up and
Yeah.
everyone starts chanting Superman.
Yeah.
I think that was really, really impactful for me because Superman is an American icon,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also known throughout the world, probably
Right.
the most identifiable symbol in the entire world. You could
Mm-hmm.
show someone the Superman symbol and they'd know what it
They know what you're
is.
talking about. Yeah.
And that watching that scene with those people chanting Superman's name, thinking about this American icon that is recognizable to the whole world as a symbol of hope and goodness really hammered home what you told me that one time about that writer, was it Grant Morrison that said it?
Grant Morrison. Mm-hmm.
That the greatest thing that humanity created was Superman and his ideals
Mm-hmm.
for goodness.
Yeah.
And I think that was very prevalent in that scene for me. It just it hammered home. It like there was like a moment where I was like on the verge of tears just watching that because I thought it was such a well done scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
I actually thought that moment too, like the moment where Clark sees that
yeah,
and Ma Kent says, I shined your boots, I cleaned your boots, I'll go get them for you.
yeah,
That to me is the moment in the movie where Clark Kent becomes whole again.
yeah,
Because he was broken earlier in the movie. Like he got his ass beat, his girlfriend doubted him. He found out his parentage was not what he thought it was. Society doesn't trust him anymore. He got arrested. Like he's had this crisis of faith the whole time. But right after his dad says, like, what you wanted that message to mean matters a whole lot more than what some fool wanted it to mean.
yeah,
And then he says, your choices and actions make you who you are. I couldn't be more proud of you. Right there, you see Clark has a moment of healing, like, oh fuck, like my dad's right. And then when he walks into that room and he sees that TV and he sees those kids crying for Superman, it's like suddenly he knows who he is again. It's in storytelling, the word atonement didn't used to mean to make up for something you had done wrong. It used to mean the moment you became whole. And for me, that is it, like at one meant like to become whole. That is Superman's moment of atonement in the film. That's the moment where he becomes whole. That's like the first time we see Superman, grown ass man Superman in full, is that scene where he's looking at the TV and he knows what he has to do.
yeah.
God damn, I love this movie.
Well, then that leads me to my next question. Rewatch value. Insanely rewatchable, yearly rewatch, a good time at the movies, take it or leave it, or one and done.
Insanely rewatchable.
I agree. I am right there with you. All right. Well, without any further ado, we are on to our very last category, the Johnny Horror Score. Here at the Johnny Horror Score, we give our final thoughts and rankings, but before we do that, we will discuss briefly the response to the film. Now, granted, while we are still in the early days of the film's release, critical and fan-based responses have both been fairly positive overall. The film has an 83% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a very solid 93% from fans. However, if you know anything about how the Rotten Tomatoes scores its rankings, you'll understand that these scores uh, are not as reliable as something like Metacritic, which currently has a 68. To put that in perspective, the film's predecessor, Man of Steel, sits at a 55, and the OG 1978 flick stands tall, rather, with an 82. I think it's safe to say that most fans and critics alike agree that while this is far from a perfect flick, it is a solid step in the right direction for the forthcoming cinematic universe. Rotten Tomatoes, the way they do their scoring is that basically if you either like it or you dislike it,
It's an
basically
aggregation of thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's harder to get really a solid, I look at them all. I look at, okay, what does Rotten Tomatoes critics say, what does Rotten Tomato fan base say, and then, what does Metacritic say, and then you kind of make up your own mind. But I think overall, I mean, it's, much better than what Man of Steel, was doing.
Mhm.
So fingers crossed that the film has legs in
Mhm.
ways that Man of Steel didn't. I mean, it did 125 million
Mhm.
for its
Domestic.
opening weekend at the box office, domestic. So I think that's solid start, and it doesn't have any major competition for at least another week.
Mhm.
And then Fantastic Four will come out, so we'll see how it does.
Yeah, that goes.
Do you want to go first or should I go first for final thoughts and rankings?
You go ahead.
Okay. This is, without question, a solid superhero flick with its core message taking center stage on top of the Man of Tomorrow's shoulders. An excellent popcorn flick with kick-ass performances, awesome spectacle, and an incredible score. And while I think the story may be a little overstuffed and the script is far from perfect, I can say without question that this is the best version of Superman we've seen on screen in damn near 50 years. And I left the theater feeling inspired by the superhero's capacity for goodness, hope, and love in a way I've never have felt before. And I think that means, at least for yours truly, James Gunn achieved what he set out to do. 8 out of 10.
I want to point out when we're looking at those reviews that in 2025, movies
Yeah.
don't always receive a fair shake.
Yeah.
I went through the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, and there were reviews that were 100% sincere, like this didn't work for me, this didn't work for me, didn't connect with this, didn't really like it. And I'm all for criticism and I'm all for disagreeing in an honest way. But brother, I read so many reviews that were just like, oh man, a superhero movie, 3 out of 10. Or CGI battle, 3 out of 10. Or even referenced other filmmakers who have had Superman before and said, well, I like this version more, 3 out of 10. I saw one that said, if the DCU is going to be all about insulting the intelligence of women, I want nothing to do with it. That is an official blurb on a Rotten Tomatoes score. That is a rotten review. So I would like to point out that I think that 83% is pretty buoyant considering the headwind this movie was facing.
Yeah.
And one other metric I just want to bring up is Letterboxd. Letterboxd has 441,000 reviews.
Jesus Christ.
And it's sitting at a 4.0, which is very hard to do on Letterboxd. Very, very, very few superhero movies get to a 4.0 on Letterboxd.
That's
On
great.
Letterboxd, anything over a 3 is pretty impressive for any movie. Like it's because they count a lot of half stars in there. So anyway, if I'm putting on my critical hat and I'm looking at this movie as a superhero adventure, not as Schindler's List or Citizen Kane, but as a superhero adventure, I give this movie a 9 out of 10. If I put on my fan hat and I say, how does this movie make me feel? It's a 10 out of 10.
Any other final thoughts?
Nah, man, I'm glad this movie finally came out. I'm glad we got this. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad that maybe the rest of the world can start to see Superman a little bit more the way we do. And I hope people will take their families, take your kids, and give this movie a shot. That goes for you too, Buster.
We'll see. I know Killian wants to see it. He did good when we took him to see Jurassic World, but that's because there were dinosaurs. And I mean, I know we got some fun stuff in this one, but I feel like some of it might still be just a little
A little
heady
too
for him.
slow-paced for his age.
Just trying to keep him engaged. And we just he and I just went through all of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. I just showed him we watched the third one today.
Uh-huh.
And that's the first time I've seen it in damn near 20 years since it came out. And he has lots of questions. Lots and lots of questions. Like,
so maybe this is more of a home video movie for him.
Yeah. But he will definitely be watching it. Just a couple more questions before we wrap things up. If you were going to show Superman 2025 at the Johnny Horror Drive-In, what film would you double feature it with?
This was a tough question for me, and the first two that came to my mind were Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 or the Avengers, the first Avengers. But I landed on Captain America: The Winter Soldier because I feel like there's such a similar lead character. Sorry, my dog is causing me problems over here. There's such a similar lead character who's also experiencing a crisis of faith for the first time. And so there's a similarity in themes, but I also think it's such a different movie that there'd be such a great contrast watching this like fantastical, hopeful Superman movie and then watching Cap murder a bunch of people with machine guns. So yeah, that's Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
That's my
I
double
like
feature.
that. Hell yeah.
Mhm.
I picked Brightburn. 'Cause-
Hey,
Yeah. Well, obviously James Gunn and James
Mhm.
Gunn. But it's like I said at the start of the pod, it's the inverse. It's in Brightburn, he is very much again sent here to conquer and destroy, and he chooses to be bad. And Superman, he is sent here to conquer and destroy, and he chooses to be good.
Yeah.
So I think you have really great, similar stories there, and you don't burn yourself out because you show Brightburn first.
Mhm.
You get the whole origin story,
Mhm.
and then you just kind of do a weird loop-de-loo and end up, in the proper Superman world right after. I think that's a pretty kick-ass combo right there.
That's a great double feature.
And final question, how do you rank the 3 first outing Superman flicks? So 78, Man of Steel, 2025.
78 1A, 25 1B, and Man of Steel B 2.
All right, I'll allow it.
Well, it's because sometimes like a ranking is
No.
a genuine 1-2, and sometimes it's more 1A 1B. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, like I found myself, going. I'm like, dude, don't get me wrong. There's some. I have some gripes with Donner's movie. It just being
Mhm.
there's the whole Lex Luthor, as great as Gene Hackman is, his whole plan is nonsensical, and then
Mhm.
Clark turning back the world and everything.
You know what's funny too is that scene where he turns back the world, like what leads him to it, and his dad talking to him is brilliant,
Yeah,
and the
it's great.
scream and all that. But it's just
It's
the
great.
action of turning back time. It's just like
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, exactly.
not
Like
good. Yeah.
I love I really do love that. And I love how that action plays into the second film. Because they're
Mhm.
like, well, you leave the movie and there's really no consequences for Superman. You're like, well, there is. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I'm very much the same way. I got at 78, just a hair, just in terms of God, what a fucking beautiful movie from start to finish. And Christopher Reeve is like
Incredible.
like I thought about this. Like I really did genuinely think about this. Like David Cornsweet was born to be an actor,
Mhm.
no question.
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve was born to play Superman.
Mhm.
I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
So 78, 2025, Man of Steel. Like there,
Right.
there you go.
Right. Cool.
But yeah, gang, that is gonna do it for our special bonus episode of Superman 2025. Kalen, thanks for talking superhero movies with me. Probably like better conversation than even when we talk horror movies, you know? I think last time we geeked out this hard was probably Unbreakable, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was.
um always great having conversations with you, buddy, and we'll be back soon to have more of those conversations, and hopefully you look forward to listening to them. But until then, we will see you motherfuckers on the flip side. Adios, muchachos.
Be good, do good, and look up.